pray. Lord, thank you for allowing us to come together this evening to discuss the business of this wonderful city. We ask that you watch over this meeting and that you guide us with heart and spirit to provide us with the facts and lead us to make decisions that are true and right with the best interests of the citizens of Lakeside City. Amen.
Do we have that? Is it in there? Fine. You took it back. Charlotte, before we get the new oath of office, we just want to thank you. We do have a plaque coming your way, but it had to go back for a hot minute, so you will be getting a plaque in the city point. Again, we just want to thank you for your time. On behalf of the council and the citizens that we represent, thank you so much for your time, for bringing this, your guidance on here, but we definitely appreciate your time you spent here.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yep. I will turn it over to Allison now.
I'm City Secretary Allison Sanders, and I will go ahead and do the oaths of office one at a time. Unless do y'all want to do it all together? Okay. Makes it a little harder on me. Okay, just kidding. No, it's fine. Okay. Then if I could have Miss Kim Williams, Mr. William Rutledge, and Miss Pamela Morgan Davis all stand. And if you will, raise your right hand and repeat after me, except you're all gonna have to say your actual places. So it might be a little jumbled, but, anyways. Okay, okay, in the name and by the authority of the state of Texas.
Name and by
By the
authority
authority
of
of
the
the state of Texas,
I
I, William Rutledge,
Pam Davis,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
City Council
District
at Large,
one, Place
District
two.
2, Place 2
at large, okay, of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve,
preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and laws
And
and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay?
Now you can.
Now,
We'll get the hang of that.
that was harsh.
See, it was just short. Now you're back on.
Now, back on.
That short rejection.
Congratulations to all of us.
And now I will also go through roll call. Mayor Corey Glassburn.
Here.
Kim Williams. Here. John Strinsky.
Here.
Allison Sanders, City Secretary, I am here. Mr. Colby Kafer.
Here.
William Rutledge.
Here.
Brad Snowdy.
Here.
Miss Pamela Morgan Davis.
Here.
And our city attorney, Miss Julie Vasquez. Here.
Perfect. Thank you. Business number 5, citizen comments.
Okay, we have citizen comments this evening. Perfect. We'll go ahead and start off with Mr. Whitfield. You're up.
Bonnie Whitfield, 600 Shoreline. I'm not gonna take a lot of time, but, thank y'all, after last month and Corey reaching out, Brad reaching out, and just asking, what's going on, and, I just wanted to give a little bit of my input when it comes, because I know it's y'all are gonna talk about that in a little bit, about the boat ramp and the lot there, for the public access. My 2 cents on all of this is just that, that we just start with something small and not spend a whole lot of money, on something that is gonna take up money and maybe doesn't work, or we don't know. We've been pretty good. Donald has been great too, and John, if there's anything going on down there, just call them and they'll come down there and see what's going on, but, just my suggestion is just starting with something small, like a sign that just says Lakeside City residents only, and kind of going from there, and us monitoring and seeing what's going on before we do a fence or boulders or all this other things, and so really that's it. So I appreciate you guys
Scarborough?
I have two items here on, my name's Wade Scarborough, 309 Chris Drive. Tonight I'm kind of representing Archer County. I have two items on the agenda here that I'd like to address. The first one being the traffic warning system of the volunteer fire department. I was blown away by the number of vehicles that pass up and down 79 every day, as John had brought it to our attention. 10,000 vehicles a day. When we were over here on the other side, we had just those little signs up there that nobody ever pays attention to. And as we approached that intersection behind that fence, and there was some very close calls, just getting out on the highway. People didn't know how to react when they come up on an intersection. You got a fire truck trying to come out of it, and that was and they weren't at full speed. Okay, they're coming off that intersection down there. They weren't at full speed. I sit out here on this tarmac and watch vehicles go flying by with emergency lights on. Three of us in the Commissioner's Court saw the value in these warning signs. I have to admit, it wasn't a unanimous decision, but three of us have seen the value in those, and I hope that y'all would also see the value in investing in that. We have committed to paying for half, paying for the one sitting out in the county, up there on 281 at the top of the hill, to give those people coming over that hill warning at 55, 60, however fast they run. And so I would just hope to encourage you to also consider that. The next item would be the hours on the park bathrooms. While we were up here cooking Saturday, there was a steady stream of people coming in that door, going to those restrooms. And if we would have had the park restrooms open for that event, those folks wouldn't have to make a run all the way up here. I would just encourage you, as you're looking at the hours of operation, also look at certain events that they may be open for that garage sale. Because there's a lot of folks parked down there at the park. I wasn't there, so I didn't see it. My wife told me. A lot of folks parked along that park and then walked down into those streets. Because there's quite a few garage sales in there. So that's just one other thing that I would ask you to consider. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Mr. Holloway?
Hey folks, thank you for the opportunity to address you guys. I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on what Wade said, because some of the stuff, he was fire chief back whenever I was sitting up there, and we did some things. I haven't had a chance to talk to John or chief or anybody about this, but what I understand is the donations are down on the water bills. And I don't know what we're doing as a city or as a fire department to pump up the volume, to get people back doing that again, because Wade remembers back when all the fire department ever did was fundraise. You know, I mean, literally all the time fundraising. And it was just not the right way to do it. So on our watch, we said, okay, let's let people put it on, you're familiar with what I'm talking about. Put it on the water bill, it's an easy way to donate to the fire department. They don't have to worry about funding, they have a consistent funding comes in every month. It's a very, very good thing. So I'm not sure what you're doing, I haven't talked to you, so I'm trying not to, I didn't want to blindside you, but pump up the volume, get people to do that, I think it's a very good thing. Along those lines, I think people up and down 79 probably, sometimes they're listening to their tunes, they're probably not watching anything anyhow. One of the things that we did, it's not necessarily something that you have to take under your advisement, but I would offer it, is that we kept a bright line between the city and the fire department, because they're a nonprofit. We helped indirectly every way we could, because we have a vested interest, all of us were homeowners here, you know? And we want a good fire department. This guy got us boatloads of good equipment. He was an ace on grants. My goodness, I can't say enough good about Wade when he did the fire chief thing. But the warning thing, even though the price has gone down a little bit from what I understand, I'm I'm not sure as a city we should be blending that taxpayer money for a nonprofit. You might bounce it off legal counsel to see about that, you know, how deep we can go as a city. I don't know the answer to it, but I'm just throwing it out there. We kept that relationship. It wasn't, you know, an ugly one, it was just, we just did it that way. Kept church and state kind of separate, if you will. And I wanted to throw a little thing out there. I mean, the agenda comes out, as a citizen, I see it either on the board or posted online, whatever the case may be. I see something about solar and propane. I have no idea what you guys are gonna discuss and consider as a taxpayer or as a citizen. I have very little time to get a hold of my representatives to ask those questions. And you guys, I'm not sure when you get your background papers, but it's probably not much sooner than what it's posted.
Somebody posted.
Yeah, that's the way we used to do it. So you're just as new to it as I am when you see that. And it makes you go, I wonder what the heck they're gonna talk about, you know? What I don't know, suggestion, there may be some generic information that could be put on the agenda, like your background, but not to the depth and degree necessarily. I mean, you don't have to go into infinite detail, but just a nutshell where a citizen would say, oh, okay, yeah, and let them know whether to be concerned or pester their representatives or not. Just a thought. The boat ramp, I don't know, it would work for me right now, you know, not that big a deal. What I'm not sure is where we're going with this. Again, this is a lack of information on my part. I'm not sure where council may head on that. I would be scared to where anybody got the notion that that was a public boat ramp for the reasons that, like our last meeting, that were vocalized then. Because I would echo those, even though I don't live close to it. Doesn't matter, you know, one of these days I'm gonna get my little yellow boat up and running, and I put it in there. I used to put it in there all the time. The water's deep enough for me. I would be concerned because then we're gonna really get an influx, because it would pop up on a map somewhere. And then, you know, some of the citizens said we were already getting some out-of-town traffic. I don't know about the legality of putting city residents on it. If we can get away with it, whoo, you know, do it, you know. But again, thank you for the opportunity to share a few thoughts. I'll just say that.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank
Okay.
Mr. Sturgis.
Good afternoon, my name is Larry Sturgis, I live at 613 Royal. I want to thank the council for letting me speak today, and congratulate all the city councils that won their elections. I call it the good, bad, and ugly election. We saw the good in people, and we really saw the bad and the ugly, and it's sad. But I hope that's over now and we can begin to work. We want, talk to, work with him about the city boat ramp. I think it should be a city only. I know it's gonna be hard to enforce, very hard to enforce, but I think it should be. We've already seen pictures of people abusing the system, trashing it up, and it's just gonna get worse, especially when Wichita finishes the pavilion they're trying to build. It's gonna get worse. So we need to get ahead of the issue and get it stopped before it gets worse. Second of all, I'd like to talk about the internet service. As we found out through coronavirus, the vital need for high-speed internet for school and for a community to grow like we want it to grow, we have to have high-speed internet, whether it's fiber or T1 line or wireless. It just depends. I'd like the council to think about that when they're making their decision about internet service. It's always changing, it's always gonna be advanced, but if we continue to have good quality, high-speed internet service, our community is gonna grow. And again, I wanna thank you for letting me speak today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Fair.
Howdy y'all. Bonnie here, Chief Lakeside City. Month of April, yes, we had 2 MVAs, 17 EMS, 0 fires.
Is that the end of the citizens' comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
you
Yep,
interrupted me.
no, I thought you were gonna, so I just wanted to make sure that we're moving on to number 6.
Okay. Neil Fire Apparatus finally came and picked up our new truck after months and months of begging. Hopefully they start on it. Rick Moser, he's a new guy in the department. Him and his partner, Vietnam Miser Air Conditioning, they donated a new ice machine to us, 100-pound machine. We really appreciate that. And then Rick also spoke to his wife, Shelley Moser. She works at the hospital, and she put together a grant for us, so we have a brand new AED now. The guys did training Monday night. They came in, did the training, did some other stuff, fed them supper, and we now possess a brand new AED. So thank you to both of them. They both live with us right there. It's a good deal. Garage sale brought in, we made 1,800. Goodwill come through. I know a lot of people don't like Goodwill, but they pay us 5 cents a pound. They picked up 16,300 pounds of goods. Matter of fact, we overwhelmed them. They're going to have to get another truck next year. They did it. They ended up to about $1,600. Then we sold our old smoker for $3,500. So for the weekend, we ended up making about $6,900. That's not bad. Yeah. I said, we had some people come up, complain about Goodwill, but I understand, I hear you, I don't like them either, but they're gonna give us money, we're gonna take it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Lonnie. Appreciate it.
We do that for base camp.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Good deal.
City manager update?
We went ahead and we hired, the 2 seasonals, Tristan Berry and Austin Stevens, and so far, they're stellar workers. We couldn't be happier with them. Obviously, the rain has kept their hours down, so they haven't been out mowing like they wanna be. But these are 2 real hardworking kids, and they've been, really pushing to get hours and get out there and mow, so, I think they're gonna work out great for the summer. Our CFO has been busy. Fiscal year 19 is complete, and he's moving on into fiscal year 20. So he's keeping myself in the loop as to where he's at and what he's doing. So far so good. He hasn't found any issues at this time. So our road project, the big project, went into the paper. It first got published on the 13th for the bids. It'll be published again on the 20th. Dean would like to look at opening bids on June 12th at 2 p.m. at City Hall. And then look at awarding the project, discussing with council and presenting to council at the June 15th City Council meeting. Possible construction date at this time is July 15th. With keeping in school in mind, we'll look at limiting the seal coating after August 25th. So they're gonna try and get as much done before school starts and before those buses start hammering the roads. I did note, if you look at your maps that Dean gave you, he did indicate putting a lot of the road material that's gonna be brought up in the cul-de-sac at the end of Royal. I'll be talking to Dean about that. That's not a good location, especially since I found out that the school bus still does turn around at that location. So I have some alternates in mind for Dean, so we'll move that. So if you see that on your map, I'm already handling that. The community-wide cleanup, that'll start Saturday, June 5th. It'll also be on Sunday, June 6th. The dumpsters will be picked up on June 7th, so Monday. We're getting 5 dumpsters this year. I'm gonna go ahead and put 2 at the old City Hall, and then 3 will be at the Bowman Road lift station right over here at 199 Bowman Road. No paint, no chemicals, no tires. What's that?
Batteries.
Yeah. We'll have to make sure everybody, and I'll get the word out, I'll get a flyer and put some stuff together for everybody so we don't abuse that. I did wanna make everybody aware, we had an internet company called Rise, also called Skybeam. They have equipment on our water tower located in the park. They stopped sending us checks. The last check that we received for rental was on January 27th of 2021. They were paying $300 a month. Eric had left numerous messages for those folks and never managed to get a hold of them. I got a hold of a representative from their company a couple weeks ago, but he's not involved with their tower activities. So he said their tower guy would call me. I haven't heard back from them, and he would not give me their tower guy's phone number either. So I haven't heard hide or hair. I talked with Pinnacle, and Pinnacle was actually the ones that kind of brought this to our attention. None of their equipment is actually physically hooked up on top of the on top of the tower. It's actually it's got wires hanging in the wind, and nothing's actually working up there. Ironic, I told Pinnacle to go ahead and remove the equipment for the sake of aesthetics and for the sake of not having junk equipment just sitting on top of our water tower. We're gonna store their equipment neatly and nicely at the base of the water tower should they wanna come pick it up. Funny story, they started sending us checks again, I guess after I called them. They sent us a check on May 1st of 2021, but again, their equipment is inoperable. So we'll just take their money, I guess, for $300 for storage fee for their equipment. That is all I have for city manager update.
My question on that is,
Mhm.
even though Pinnacle took it down, the holes that are left in our water tower,
They haven't taken it down yet. It's pending. According to Pinnacle, none of the equipment will have left holes. It's all attached to pre-existing stuff up there already. So we're good to go there. I think Pinnacle is just concerned that we're gonna get a windstorm and some of their equipment's gonna come flying off and damage their equipment, honestly.
I pulled a contract and see what the contract says.
Yep.
So, it's probably gonna be responsible and then that doesn't happen.
And if you can't get a hold of anybody on the responsibility part, then Pinnacle's out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a civil issue though.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yep. That's all I had on the update.
That brings us to number 7, consent agenda. Consent agenda is for the approval of April 20th regular meeting and the approval of May 10th special meeting minutes.
Motion we accept it as presented.
Mr. Ehrlich makes the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Morgan seconds it, discussion between council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes. That will bring us to number 8, the regular agenda, 8A. Go ahead.
Item 7A, discussion and consideration on the solar panel and propane tank ordinance. Council has received Julie's ordinance. Any discussion or questions? Input?
What were the specific changes on?
The one I
this
sent,
Yes.
it was just little typos here and there that I wanted to kind of get it hashed out in.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I didn't think that there was anything.
No, what you guys have is basically what I discussed with Eric and what we had kind of talked about at that, not the last meeting, but the meeting before in March, on adding in there and whatnot. We just didn't know if you guys wanted to add anything else, or if you felt something was being missed.
We added the inoperable systems. I don't need to be left there, right?
I'm pretty sure that I went ahead and I changed that. Let me pull it up so I'm not lying to you.
While she's doing that, are we taking this both together? Discussion on solar and propane, or are we separate?
It's all one.
It's a combined ordinance.
So I noticed that on the solar panel, that we did have a grandfather clause, but we aren't gonna do that for propane, is that correct?
On the solar panel, I have a particular section that's labeled grandfather clause. That's because with the solar panel, we weren't really requiring them to change it or do anything like that. But on the propane tank under 32.2D, it states that any home which at the time of signing this ordinance contains an above ground propane tank shall have 6 months to comply with these requirements, because that's how we discussed. So there's not technically a grandfather in, they have 6 months to change it.
And primarily that was putting a privacy structure around it if it's in the front yard or past the front of the house.
Correct.
But that's not a 6-foot privacy, right? It's just something that hides the propane
Mhm.
tank.
I don't think we had ever agreed to an actual level.
Okay.
I think it's 18 inches at my bed minimum, right? Oh, 32.2 B says.
32, 2. Yeah,
It states all fencing around and above.
at a
ground.
minimum, yeah.
Okay, 18 inches at my bed minimum. Let's back up for a minute just to go about a little bit what Steve had talked about prior to responding then.
Yeah.
And it's gonna, and this is gonna, it's important to talk about this history because it's gonna come up again in a little bit. Let's start over with why we're doing this. Let's start over, let's back up for everybody. John, why are we doing this? Why are we coming up with an ordinance for solar? Why are we coming up with an ordinance for propane?
There's been concerns. There's been concerns about how they look. There's been concerns about security and safety. So, I mean, those are.
By
those are-
citizens?
Mhm, by citizens and council members, yep. And
Yeah, where
honestly,
they're
fire department.
located, like, there's one over in East that is like right out in the front yard,
It's on the property line, so.
yeah, I mean, it's still on the property line, but it's out front, and, I mean, and then the same thing over here on Shoreline, you've got one, it's been there for a long time, but it's just right out there in the open, and instead of, you know, maybe tucked away a little bit further. But we started talking about this it's been a couple of,
Yeah, it's been a few
I
months.
think we started in January, and then I started drafting in February and March, and then this is kind of when this kind of came out.
In March, you gave us the first rough draft.
Correct.
It was when we talked about it in session
we started making,
and the amendments to.
yep.
So just kind of history about it, it's just that there's
It's
a lot of.
mainly aesthetics, yeah, I mean,
It's
safety-
aesthetics.
Safety has to go with IPC anyhow.
I think with the new technology, we have to be responsible and do our due diligence to protect the city, the
Yeah.
residents, and our neighbors, to make sure that we are trying to do, you know, that we're not going, again, I would be mad if a solar panel showed up and, you know, right on my fence line as well, you know? I mean, not mad, but, you know,
We also addressed the fact if they no longer work,
Mhm.
they need to be
Right.
taken down, and at what time period they have to either fix them or take them down.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they might stay there for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, I got you, I got you.
this is what it's showing.
Thank you.
Yep.
And to answer that question,
Cause I'm looking at program.
I did include that in the 32.4, under the solar panel 32.4B. I did include if solar panels are non-functioning, inoperable, or any way unsightly, displeasing. I think we had discussed that at least for 6 months, then they were to be either replaced or removed. So I did include that in there.
Thank you.
And I went a little bit more extensive in that section as well.
So all in all, just to kind of let the public know, this is just more or less guidelines for us to be able to adhere to an ordinance in which we can at least have.
18 inches is kinda short. Most of those tanks are up here.
Most of the region,
If
how
it's
many gallons.
aesthetics, I'd say 3 feet minimum, but that's just me.
Yeah, what was 18 inches?
So I was looking, I was like, that's a foot and a half.
Yeah, a foot and a half ain't much, that ain't even halfway in the tank on a 200
I
cc.
thought it was 18 inches above the tank.
Above the tank.
Oh, above the tank.
I thought that's what we decided on.
Well,
18 inches
That's
from the
logical,
ground.
regardless of the size of the tank, we're still good.
So that would
Okay.
have to be redrafted or because the way it reads is all fencing around an above ground propane tank must be of 18 inches in height at a minimum.
Okay, so I can add in there above the propane tank.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll add that in there,
And take off the at minimum, yeah.
yeah.
Can I go ahead and interject real quick?
Yep.
What about in-ground propane tanks? I've just encountered an in-ground today, and it's actually interfering with some drainage. And the home just sold, and I wanna try and get in contact with the homeowners to find out if it's operable. So are we gonna
Going
take
back
a
to
look?
the history though, it was really the aesthetics of it,
Yeah.
right? So, for me personally, just one out of all of us, I mean, it could be a pain coming to issues, but as far as the history of this was really for the aesthetics and where we're seeing ourselves at, but council, feel free to chime in.
Sounds like that situation would be just for you to try to work out with the homeowner.
Is it in a concrete box like they're supposed to be?
I haven't trespassed on the property to determine that yet. I can see it from the street.
Cause it could become a safety hazard.
Yeah.
Get
could.
water
It's
standing.
It's part of the,
Yeah, yeah.
it's part of the drainage area.
Yeah.
My concern is erosion on that drainage area and eventually exposing the tank. And the top of the tank already is looking a little rusty, so.
Does it fall within our easement?
No, it doesn't. It's inside the property line.
And I can say this, when I was looking into the propane tank ordinance and starting the drafts on all of that, when I was talking to Eric about it, I actually told him that I came across a lot of stuff that it seems that if it's underground, it's already really heavily regulated, so it could be that maybe they're not following certain things that they're supposed to be following anyways, and it's more so just looking at what's already in place. Cause that was more state rules and stuff like that.
And going back to this ordinance, 33.1 states the purpose of this section is to establish standards for propane tanks to accommodate above-ground propane tanks in appropriate locations. So this ordinance is strictly for above-ground propane tanks. So even if we pass this, the below-ground buried ones, that would have to be my assumption would be a whole different or amendment to this.
I didn't know if we wanted to add it at this time, since we're.
I don't know what to style. I would wait on that or make an amendment to that because I don't know the laws in which to even start on that.
Throw it out there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean,
Yep.
it's good looking outside the box. I just think that would have to be an amendment because it would allow us more time to make sure that we're within.
And I'll do some research on the actual location
Sure.
where that tank is. I'm waiting for the folks to move in and then I'll introduce myself.
Perfect. Any other questions from council?
So it has to table since it has to be
I
updated
think you could make a motion with
with
that
the.
change, could you not?
I can get that changed and sent to you guys tomorrow morning. That's not gonna be an issue.
If there's not a motion, then we can table it till a later date, or I'll entertain a motion if one's ready.
Just make a motion with the changes.
He's correct.
Make a motion, we accept the propane tank and solar panel ordinance with the exception of the height requirement we're gonna change.
That, and just for clarification, 18 inches above the top of the propane. Mr. Caper makes the motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Williams seconds it, discussion from council, all those in favor?
I think this is I think this is something, protect everybody down the road.
Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Brings us to 8B.
Discussion and consideration on traffic warning system for volunteer fire department. So, I know that council Kim had requested, pictures. I went ahead and sent pictures of the warning system to the council members to review.
Would you mind putting them on the screen for us?
Can you say maybe?
Yeah, no worries.
As soon as I figure out how to get out of quick design.
So just the history on this one, just to let y'all know, is, there was a little bit left in the budget from the certificate of obligation for this. We did table it last month, just because of the finances of it and the cost of it. And during that time, as Mr. Scarborough said, that, commissioners have agreed to pay for half, is that correct?
That's correct.
And we just felt like it was a little costly at the time.
And the one the county's gonna pay for is up 79 to the
That's right.
southwest,
Yes.
or is it past 54 though?
No,
No, back
no,
this
the
side.
top hill.
Top hill, okay.
And then we'll have one out here.
The other one will be located by the garage, by the,
By the garage.
yeah, by the Lakeside City Auto.
Is that where they pull out?
No, it's before
No,
they
you gotta
get
have
to
it
the
before.
Yeah, if you drive on 79 right now, TxDOT has put cones and, rebar in where the signs would go, because they're gonna move the existing signs from the station location to up here for now, to give us some protection, give the fire department some kind of protection, so. The other question that council had was the warranty. It's a 3-year limited warranty, on the system.
Do you have the new numbers with what it's gonna leave in the CFO, with paying for the one out of that?
Yeah, so we have in the contingency fund $9,025 at this time, with the precinct one's contribution, the total city, contribution would need to be $4,448.
That's only about 5 in there.
Yes, sir. And at this time, this question did get asked, at this time, we have no outstanding bills for the building itself, so.
Well, that was money we originally talked about putting over here anyways.
My understanding was that was money originally slated for the warning system, is what I was told by the previous administrator.
John, do you have pictures?
I have limited technology skills at this time.
It's a Mac.
If you picture so we're gonna do drawings, if you can picture the warning signs existing, they have a ring of LED lights around it. And what'll happen is when the fire department leaves the station, there's a big button that they'll press, and then those lights they basically just start flashing, amber LED lights.
John can see what that's.
Yeah, didn't you show us some last time, or a picture of it? I remember seeing something.
Here, I'll
Yeah, I just
open
got it.
Yeah. Is there a conflict of interest for the city to invest in that?
I mean, I have to look into that to see if there would be a conflict of interest. I hadn't considered, I wasn't here last month due to the family emergency, but I hadn't considered it being a nonprofit and then the city and the separation of it, so.
And that's what they would use to.
I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud, you know that.
Yeah. It's a line item.
No wiring going to it.
Well, if
It's
it's
solar,
solar,
so you don't even have to worry
What's
about.
that?
That still brings up safety to the citizens of Lake South City, period.
Yeah.
if it's out of the CRO, it's the same money you built the building with that we're in right now. That's,
Right, that's what I was saying, is we were gonna put that money,
yeah,
was left over here anyways.
you know, that money is what we're using as we speak, so.
And just a reminder for those that weren't here, TxDOT, we have a signed agreement with TxDOT that they will do the actual installation and, keep the system up. And I actually met with TxDOT today on the scene of an accident and confirmed with their local representative that agreement is still in place and that they're just waiting for the signals to show up to put them up.
So next thought's putting it in, they're paying for one, we just gotta pay for one, that's it.
Well, essentially, yes, but I mean, we're splitting the cost of the control system.
Right.
It isn't just the
Right.
signal
Button and
itself,
all that, right.
just for clarification, right? It's for half
That's
of
still
the system.
4,400 you were talking about covers. it.
$4,448.
Right, and that'll still leave money in the CFO for.
Yes,
whatever we need.
approximately, yeah, about $4,500.
I'm fine with it.
I mean, I could see it as a benefit because it's more for the citizens of the city, so I can see an argument for that.
And where's the one coming over the hill, like, coming down 79?
It'll be down, if you're coming down the hill from Archer, it's just halfway down the hill.
I think you work right, you don't realize there's a hill, but there's a hill right
It's a
outside here.
rise.
Yeah.
We'll call it a rise.
Before you get to 54.
Right.
Yeah.
It peaks right over there, and that's, when you're coming this way, you can't see what's zero over.
Yeah, cause
The
still right there,
sister-
people are still rolling through at 75.
The system has a built-in timer system, so we'll set the timer can be set for the amount of time that the amber lights are running as well, so. When the button's pressed, it'll run for, let's say, 5 minutes, for the trucks to get out onto the highway and then they'll turn off.
I don't know if we discussed this, but did we discuss what the life expectancy, cause I know it's LED, so it's supposed to last for a long time, but is there a, like, estimate or suggested timeframe?
Well,
There's a 3-year warranty.
Yeah, I mean, there's systems that are in place, I talked with the representative, they're out of Wisconsin. He's got systems up there that are dealing with, what we went through for Snowmageddon every single year, so their systems are getting abused and they haven't had any issues with them in years.
Do they activate when you come back? Do you ever?
No, well, it just depends, there's only one key fob included in this package. So technically, the key fob costs $150 a piece, so, and there's, how many trucks? Eight trucks, so, the fire department's thinking at this time is to place the key fob in the most used truck, which is the rescue. So that's.
So when they come back, they can activate it if they can. put it
Absolutely,
in
if they need to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We haven't heard of issues coming home, it's issues going out the door.
But there's a manual override button you can hit inside.
Yes, it's a big, control panel, it's wireless, and it's a giant button, you just slap the button as you're walking past to activate the system.
Yes, we can put it by the light switch, turn the lights on, smack the button, and.
Yeah, there's gonna have to be a button guy like they have a gate guy
Mm-hmm.
when you chase the cattle.
So the approximate location for the northbound signal, if you're heading that direction from our building, it's in between the two. So you have Rick Moser's house, it's right here next door, it's gonna be in between his house and the next house up.
Okay, that's wooden something.
That way it gives traffic some time to see it. And again, it's a warning device, it's not gonna actually stop traffic on 79, it's just making folks aware that there's fire trucks coming
Is
up.
there a reason for the placement of it right there?
Text dot,
Has to be right there?
That's-
It can't be any, like, further down?
no, it doesn't, it's not effective, we lose effectiveness.
Right.
Yep.
Anything else? I think, I think the key fobs are a great idea, obviously they're pretty expensive, but I would just consider maybe even purchasing one more for the engine. You lose your engine on a car wreck, you're out a lot of money and a lot of time. There is, obviously there's a button, but I would think the rescue and the engine probably bought the most out of anything.
Agreed.
And so that would be my only concern, would just have the one key fob that, and I'd put it in the two most used vehicles, and that'd be up to the engine and the rescue. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but at $150 is a lot cheaper.
Oh, yeah, I mean, my gosh, we can grab it, throw it in the truck if we need to. I mean, come summertime, it's dry, we can put it in the primary brush truck.
So you're talking maybe the city buy one?
Just buy next year.
Cause y'all will buy them.
If we can, well, we'll buy them, yeah.
Yeah, start out with the one and then see
Yeah.
how that goes. If it's needed, the button on the wall may be
I
just
really think
fine.
the button on the wall will be fine, to tell you the truth.
If you purchase an additional key fob, the cost would be $4,598.
They're $150.
They are, I just added to your $44.88.
Oh.
It's an expensive key fob.
Been a long day, Corey?
The total cost.
Do you need me to try and get a picture up of there? Cause I can't.
No, you can't.
No.
Already.
Yeah, we just-
Let's go.
I'm only going in on one fob, okay?
Alright, any other discussion? Move on. I need a motion, one, go on.
I make a motion, we just go ahead and purchase our half of the warning system.
Mr. Stoney makes the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cagle seconds it, discussion between council. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no.
For the record clarification, is that for the $4,448 or is that with the additional key fob?
Let's go with the 448.
Alright, that brings to eight C. Seven.
7, discussion and consideration of alcohol use, rental policies, and fees for the community center rental. So we've had questions come up from citizens regarding obviously renting the community center, but also whether or not alcohol can be served inside our facility. When I say we, Allison and I did a bunch of research. I talked to TML, Texas Municipal League, I talked to their lawyers and their folks, So there's a lot of different factors here, and it doesn't all have to do necessarily with alcohol. It may just have to do also with just renting the community center in general. Whether or not we're gonna require the renter to have liability coverage coming into the room, both with alcohol or without. We would determine, according to the TML, we would determine how much coverage that person would need if that's a requirement that we go down the road with. And they would have to present us with evidence of that liability insurance before they come in. They also recommend that if alcohol is served, that it's using a TABC bartender. That TABC bartender will have coverage as well. So we would be covered, as far as the alcohol side goes, we'd be covered under the TABC bartender. If we wanted to get additional coverage, there's a company that we could get additional coverage quoted through, but they wouldn't quote me any kind of numbers unless I got really specific with them. I didn't feel that need at this point without council's input. We would have to get liquor liability, is basically what they're saying. And TML basically said every scenario is different for each bit of liability. So we're kind of opening up a box. So we also came up with some good questions that actually came from a community member, and this also kind of goes along with it. They also recommend that we have licensed security on hand as well if we're serving alcohol within the building. And then the citizen just said, what will the charge be? I know council has discussed a higher fee for renting the building, or a higher deposit if we have alcohol in the building. Allison and I, we did some research, and we actually came up with a draft that was sent to council of community center rental policies, and it just goes into use of the kitchen. I mean, do we want to have a deposit if folks want to use the kitchen facilities, just because there's a possibility they could end up trashed. It also goes into just obeying all the laws of the state of Texas. You know, we're just making sure that they're doing what they need to do, and that the Archer County Sheriff's Office will be called if any guests become disorderly. That's just kind of on the draft. And then we get into setup and cleanup. As far as cleanup goes, and that's just something to consider as well, regardless if we're doing alcohol in this building or not. If we have, I know right now we have a graduation party that's gonna be coming in here next month, and they expect 40 to 50 guests. That's 40 to 50 folks that are gonna be using the restrooms. At this time, Allison and I are cleaning the restrooms. And we had our seasonals mop the floor in here the other day. So I would like council to at least consider, after an event, hiring somebody to come in, whether it's used from the money generated from the rental or not, but we'd like to at least have somebody come in and clean the facility, clean the bathrooms after it's done.
Now, I will say with the park, we added the non-refundable cleaning. Pretty sure this is the non-refundable cleaning fee, but they're still responsible at the park for cleaning that up. I mean, they use all of our supplies and everything, but it's still cleaned up. Like, are you wanting professional, or they?
I would say that they need to be responsible for a general cleaning, you know, but in today's era of COVID, I think it'd be smart to have somebody come in and clean it and sanitize it and get it ready for use. I mean, we just saw a party in Wichita Falls that generated 12 COVID cases last week. So we'd like to have it professionally cleaned afterwards.
And if I can interject, like, so the park, it's a refundable cleaning deposit. So like if it's left trashed and therefore Dawn or someone has to, you know, spend more amount of time cleaning it up, then obviously we're not gonna give you back the dollars. Up here, it's like, found it, but the floors can be sticky, and that's not something that, you know, we really expect them to, you know, find everything
So-
and mop it and scrub it and all of that. So just sort of something that leaves it more like things are refilled, things are back to normal, rather.
So basically, it'd be built into the cost, so
Mhm.
we had talked about maybe 200 at one time, maybe we need to think about 300.
Right, and that's what we're
Whatever
on,
is
so.
for
Exactly.
cleaning,
Yes, sir.
supplies,
Yep.
anything
Yep.
else that might be used.
Well, and our other concern is are you going to allow, items to be taped to the walls?
So-
No,
I mean, that's something to consider as well. I mean, we should have pretty clear set we need clear set guidance to what to tell the renters.
and
That's
we're
what we
already
need.
renting it out without guidelines.
We have people on the books. We haven't had anybody actually physically come in here and use the facility yet. So now is the time to kind of make those decisions.
Well, I can say where I work, I rented a facility 3 years ago. And even though I wasn't serving alcohol, they still made me have a limited liability policy, and that cost $200.
Yeah.
So I think that at least requiring additional insurance for people that do want alcohol may be a deterrent to them actually having alcohol, because it's going to be an additional cost on top of the rental of the building.
Well, but if you're requiring a TABC certified person, that kills that, because they're gonna have to pay that person extra, because that's something they have to go
Would
and
you
do
have
a
that,
lot.
would you have that kind of person if you had beer in a trash can? That people
That's
are
what I'm
just
saying,
taking out of
any kind of
house?
alcohol period should require a TABC person, and they have to present that, they should have to present that
Insurance.
license or whatever of that person that they have already hired to serve that.
And that's
Because then, that's where the cameras come into play, I guess, where if they try to do something like that, cause people will, we all know there's the good and the bad, but then you can go back and be like, okay, well, this is what happened, so, you know, we may have
Well,
to.
the thing, like I'm thinking about the graduation party,
Mhm.
part of that concerns me are that the kids will bring their own alcohol secretly. And so, having a bartender he's not gonna be able to keep up with that. You know, they're just pouring it in their own drink in a cup. I mean, what liability do we wanna take on as a city?
That's where they're two separate things. You have your TABC bartender and then you have a host liquor license.
Mhm.
It's what the thing I'm involved with is what we have, two different things. You have to have them both,
Right.
so.
What is the host liquor, is that like
It's
just for liquor?
insurance.
And
Okay.
you can even call your insurance company and tell them that you need an insurance policy for an event
Uh-huh.
where there will be alcohol, and then they'll give you a quote, and I'm just telling you, 3 years ago, it was $250.
So that's what TML is saying. TML is saying you're gonna have coverage through the TABC bartender. You also need to have coverage from the individual coming in, wanting to rent the location, getting their own insurance. And then TML is also saying that the city might want to consider getting our own insurance policy to make sure that all the bases are covered.
Basically, it's kind of like, okay, the facility that the people who are drinking in is covered. Then the person who's putting on the event, covered. Then the person serving the alcohol, covered. And then it's like, you have your person go and, you know, fall over and whatever.
There you go.
Everybody's covered.
Do we need alcohol served in this room?
We are just presenting you with the facts and leaving it up to you, the council, to make that decision.
I would at least like to start on the side of caution, and then if we wanna ease into an alcohol policy, then.
Out of all the requests we've had for rental at this time, only one request is indicated that they would be serving alcohol here.
I'll just state, I'm not in favor of it.
I'm not either.
This,
That's a lot to put on somebody renting it, but then as well on us as a city having this nice building and not wanting it to get messed up.
And that's
Cause
the nice,
good people lie as well.
the nice building factor, that's what, I mean, personal concern, nice building factor, working in this very nice building. My concern is, and it's as good, this is gonna get a bit graphic, vomit in the bathrooms, broken glass in the parking lots, holes punched in walls. That's just, my personal concern as an individual that works inside this building.
Unless we see this as a significant revenue stream, I just think it's a bad idea.
The only way I could see it as a significant revenue stream would be to up the rental cost to an individual that is requesting to serve alcohol in the building.
I don't think that's why we built this.
No.
And I think we built it for the citizens to use.
Exactly.
You know, it means with no alcohol, just means no alcohol. But that's the reason we built this building, is where people could come, they live here and rent the building at a reasonable fee.
Is it primarily citizens asking to use it?
Yes, we haven't had any outside at this time.
Well, if you've only had one ask for alcohol, maybe we just make a general use policy.
I think it goes along the lines of what Mr. Holloway was saying with the boat ramp. You know, once word gets out, then it's gonna spread like wildfire. Especially I was looking at costs, comparing our costs to other similar facilities, and we're very affordable.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have a resident cost and a non-resident cost.
Yeah.
You can always price the alcohol out of here. Yeah, I just take it off the table.
Make it so that they don't wanna come in here.
So for discussion purposes or to move on, do we need a vote first to talk about, take alcohol off the?
I would think a motion would be in order to.
I mean, if we're not approving it, then it's dead.
Sure.
And just come back with the next one, but you're gonna have an event.
Well, we'll have to tell that individual that we are not serving alcohol. I mean, we never indicated to them that we were, so
Oh,
they
I'm
were just
just
asking
here.
questions.
Right, but you don't even have rental policies without us taking action on this.
Right, and that's why we sent a draft, rental policy in as well to you, council members.
So we can't
And that's
separate
based
them.
off of, rental policies that we've looked at for other facilities.
Can't separate the
Do
rental
you-
policies.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? If they bring it from their cars in their cups, and then someone leaves here drunk from this facility, will our city, for this liability, cover that? Or do we have to have something to protect us if some kid pulls out on 79 after they've been drinking in our parking lot? I mean, I know you can't control that,
Right.
but probably like a liability, do we have enough of that?
We could also make it where you have to have security at all events.
I just think that, cause like, it's no different than someone drinking at the park and leaving from there. So I think our TML insurance, last time I checked, just like the bounce houses and stuff like that, if they're in our, we have coverage for that. And so I guess we can get clarification on that. And you said this is all one motion, is that right? Is the rental and the alcohol, is that all in one?
Yeah, it's all on the one right here.
So those do need to be separated, because the alcohol needs to be taken off.
Well, we just need to break this down into one by one.
Mhm. Yeah, we can, since you're just first seeing the policies, it wouldn't be a bad idea for Julie to review them as well and bring it back. I mean, at the time, at this point, we've got a pretty good shell, that we've been using just kind of based on our park rentals.
When's this party at? I think it's
Which one, the alcohol party or the just
Graduation.
party in general?
graduation.
Our first party in here is, May,
I think it's the end of May.
yeah, May 22nd.
Yeah.
And that, I believe that's gonna be the graduation party.
Which is non-alcohol.
No, the craziest they're gonna get is nacho bar.
Leaving all that aside, though, we need to make something with taping things on the wall and all that.
I think we pretty much told them no.
Yeah, we've kind of
We
advised
just don't have it
them.
in writing.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's,
And
We
that's,
can do that next month's meeting.
we need a sign and rules to go with there. If we're gonna rent it out, here's your rules.
Give them a copy of it.
Mhm.
Well, almost like a checkoff list, kind of like there is
Yeah.
for the park.
And we've got one attached, there's a checkoff list in here.
What was that document called?
You should send that out. No, I'm not retarded.
Friday, that was part of the, background information.
Yeah, it's on like 4 rows down. It's different, you're not that.
Alright, so we won't use the money out of the 200 for cleaning, or we don't have a clean deposit?
I think we need bids on what the cleaning's gonna be.
Yeah, because I think there's several people locally that clean, but then,
It can cost you anywhere from $75 to $100 to clean this.
well, are we just wanting the bathrooms done because?
Bathrooms in here in the kitchen, if they use the kitchen.
We're talking mainly floors and countertops, like they won't be in our office,
And
bathrooms, yes. So,
Bathrooms are the
yeah.
biggie.
And they're just basically
Bathrooms,
sweep
floor,
'em off.
kitchen.
Yes, those are
That's
the
what
big.
you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
You're gonna talk about $75 to $100, just have someone come in and clean, cause it's commercial.
So we want a new deposit and keep it, the people that rent it don't clean it, or are we gonna take it out of the $200 that we're already charging for it?
I mean, they
That's
need
the
to clean it up for
question.
the
Yeah,
most part.
they gotta
There, I
clean
feel
it
like
up.
there's so many uncertainties just in general with renting this out, period.
That's why
Because I
we're-
don't think we ever stuck on an actual price, and
I
then
thought
now,
we did do Friday.
We
We
talked
did-
about.
I know we
Yeah.
talked about it, yeah, and we had written it down, I just don't know if that was set.
Okay.
Because now we're talking about all these extra stuff, so I don't know if you guys are gonna wanna include it, or if that's gonna be separate, and then he was talking about possibly charging extra for the kitchen, so then that's gonna be something to talk about
Yeah, I
pricing.
thought that was
on.
always part of it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the
that's-
whole.
I thought that was, the price that we had discussed originally was just for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that whole side is separate, it stops at the doors, but it's
Mhm.
this side minus the offices.
Because I'm looking at this draft, and then on here, it talks about the kitchen, and then it talks fee, approval of this, so that almost makes it seem like it's an extra fee, and it's being written in there. And then obviously about putting stuff on the walls, can they not? If they do, is it just like, we'll tape specific, not anything that's gonna leave holes anywhere?
Yeah, like you
Yeah.
can use the command strips, those do
Yeah.
fine and they don't take anything off, but we don't need duct tape and
Yeah, cause you could, because
heavy
you,
duty gorilla.
you just, I don't know, I guess people will see it as, if someone's wanting to rent it for a baby shower, or for whatever the case may be, sometimes they wanna hang up like a little balloon or a little decoration, so maybe allowing it, but then just being very specific as to what they can use for it may be beneficial, so that it's a win-win for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that,
We just wanna make sure the paint doesn't get pulled off.
yeah,
Yeah.
paint doesn't shed where there's
I
no
would
hole.
say we would go up on our rental fee, even $50
Yeah,
or
if that's gonna include
$75.
cleaning, $200 isn't worth.
And that might be something that needs to just be looked at to see the cleaning, how much is being charged, what can be the best rate, and then seeing if that can be included in there, and how, just looks like it's a lot more to talk about.
And for how many hours is it?
Right now, we're just doing it for the day, so the individual gets it for the day. 'Cause
For the whole day?
right, because then we start getting into, if they rent it for 4 hours, do we need to bring a cleaning crew in here to sanitize it, possibly because of COVID? And then, you know what I'm saying, you might have to clean in between uses.
I'm
Well, I
gonna
wasn't-
be the jerk here. Why can't our city employees clean this? I mean, we
Oh.
should expect nothing different for them to clean this with an attitude of a servant's heart and to make it clean, like we would our bathrooms.
Sure.
So the expectations we have for our restrooms to be clean should be the same expectations that we have in this building. And we have Dawn, we have 2 part-timers, I don't understand, why we can't set that expectation and why we pay these people hourly to do this stuff, and then, but yet we have to have a cleaning crew come in. That's, I'm just gonna say, it, I'll just throw that out there.
Well, no, that makes sense. And I'll just continue the poop party.
Sorry.
I don't think they should have it all day long, because you're talking about electricity and air conditioning and, I mean, even if you don't rent it again that day, I mean, set times is pretty standard. Either you're letting them in and then locking it up, or you're giving them a key, but it's 1 to 5, it's 6 to 10, it's not all day.
Yep.
That seems like a lot of cost.
And I thought we had discussed that before about doing like half
Half
days.
days, it should have been.
6
And then they
hours or
can do
something.
like a full day, but that's kind of like a different charge if you're doing it a full day. I thought that's what had been discussed before.
I thought it was 2
Yeah, because they're gonna come in and
Yeah.
crank the air down, and lights are gonna be on, and,
You figure an hour setup, maybe 3-4 hour party, then an hour cleanup, so
Yeah.
6-hour period
yeah.
would be a reasonable expectation.
They don't need to be coming and going like all day long for a party that's at like 5 o'clock
suggest not renting it beyond that party until we come back to the policy?
Yes, and so for this party coming up, let's just set some temporary guidelines, no taping on there. The cleaning fee will be on us, we can use our employees to clean that.
Sure.
Unless council thinks otherwise,
No,
I
that's
just
fine.
think that our expectation of our employees should stay the same. And then, and all other things that you feel necessary will be up to you.
Is it a high school or college graduation?
High school.
Okay.
One thing I would ask is that you don't have blinds on the windows that go in there, and there is some confidential information that could be in there, so I feel like we need blinds on the inside of that office that we can shut off to our office, so that if
I
there's any
agree.
confidential information like that, that it can be closed off. But you have glass doors in the front too, so there's that.
I will tell you this, that when we leave our office and we know that there's gonna be folks in here, my door's closed and Allison doesn't have any, confidential items on her desk. But I can try and price up blinds.
I just think if you had pictures in here, I would hate to see, maybe on those, let's just price them out.
Mhm. Do you still want me to get bids on cleaning companies, or are we just going to go ahead and go with our city workers? Or what's the
All right,
council's
so
feeling
let's
on
go
that?
with city workers.
I would get a bid just to see, like, I didn't really sign up for scrubbing toilets, I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, they have to clean the park, and that is way more disgusting, I
Oh,
would
you
like,
want
than
Don
this could
coming
be.
in or something,
Yeah.
you know, okay, that's fine.
Cause I mean,
Or Dawn.
honest, the person that rents it, they're gonna have to go over and clean stuff as well and be held accountable for that. But then having somebody else at least come behind them that's,
And bleach it or whatever.
yes.
And we have the COVID gun that we can use,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes,
So,
yep, we've got the spray, the backpack sprayer.
Let's go that route first and see how it goes.
Sure.
Yeah, if it
Honestly, I
becomes
don't feel like they're gonna make it really dirty, because then in the future, if they tried to rent it out, you guys could say, well, there was this issue before, so now, you know, this is
Yeah.
gonna be this.
And I feel like the deposit's enough that they're like, oh, cause that's what we talked about, is
Mhm.
making sure the deposit was enough, so they're not like, oh yeah, we're just not gonna clean it, yeah, we don't, $50, $75, that's fine.
And we want the citizens to use it.
Yeah.
We do. I think Brad and I talked about that before. We want to make it feasible for them to use and to utilize it. I mean, obviously, don't want it trash, but I think we go that route first, just my personal opinion.
We just had a lot of questions running into the rental season, so.
Sure. I'm good.
I definitely wouldn't raise the price much more, I think that's, I mean, for like a baby shower, I'm not gonna lie, I'd pay $200 for it, but I mean, it's, yeah, surprise.
Does she know that?
Well, I like the price what's out, I hate to get that too much higher.
Yeah.
200 for residents and 300 for non-residents.
Is that what we had
Is there
here?
a heat gun?
200 for resident, 300 for non-resident, plus the deposit that what we agreed on, talked about.
That's what we talked about.
For the record, can you go ahead and state the deposit price, please, again?
It was, I thought it was the same as the rental, didn't we? Oh my gosh,
What-
it's
what-
been a while since we
discuss
talked
that.
about it.
But we decided it was $200 if it was a resident, and we had talked about it being 300 for non-resident to rent. I don't recall what the,
See, I thought we doubled it for.
I think we tabled it for a later time.
So do we need to have a deposit this next coming up group?
We need to go back to the.
You know, we haven't received any checks from this first group yet, so.
Can we just not entertain non-residents right now?
Yeah, but nobody's, the parties that you got coming up, they're all residents though, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
So
then,
we have to
this is
figure out.
for us, paid by us, I don't know why we need to invite, you know,
so
the surrounding
We
communities
just,
in.
well, it's not really an invite, it's just that's the way we do the park as well, we just put it in place in case.
Yeah.
so $200, is that what we're talking about, $200 deposit to rent and $200 clean deposit, but to leave here clean, they get that clean deposit back, is that what we're talking about?
It's good.
Yes.
Any other suggestions?
That's something you can tell them, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the same as the park. I mean, the park, you write a check for $50 as a fee, and then you write a check for $50 for the deposit, so.
We need to table this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll entertain a motion to table that.
I make a motion, we table the rental of this building until we get a more solid ground.
Second.
Is that including or excluding the May 30th or whenever the graduation?
No, I say we go ahead and let these people have their party. I mean, John can
because there's gonna be things that we miss, and we gotta have y'all's help on doing stuff like this to make sure that we're not gonna get everything right, but we wanna keep everything nice as well.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. I'm gonna ask that we move, good move to 7E before we go to 7D. Yeah, E before D, which is discussion and consideration on status of the city boat ramp. Obviously, last month it was brought to our attention that there had been some discussion about selling the boat ramp, or from that knowledge that I gained, was to my knowledge, it's never been on discussion for us to sell the boat ramp, the Lake City lake lot there, and I guess just to kind of nail it down so we can move forward, is that any of the council's decision to look at selling that lot?
No.
General consensus is no? Okay. The second part of that would be, what do we wanna do with that lot? I know that there's been some, out-of-towners coming to visit there, ordering, leaving trash. We wouldn't want that out of our own citizens, yet alone someone else, and so, I've talked to some people about what that looks like, and what we can do. Mr. Whitfield talked earlier about maybe just post signs up right now. I'm all about personally just starting off the least amount of things at the least cost, the most cost-effective way to do that, and to try to police it ourselves. But that's something we need to discuss. If we're not gonna sell a lake lot, which it sounds like that's the general consensus of the council, how do we protect that lot? I know that there was some funding available through, Texas Park and Wildlife, is that right?
Yes.
So, remember, if we do that or submit for those grants, then it does become property of everybody in the state of Texas. So, if that's something that we were looking to, keep to ourselves, then we don't need to entertain any kind of grants from the Texas Park and Wildlife that would make that a boat ramp, which, it was a pricey grant that they was giving us.
Yes.
It's expired, we'd have to resubmit for it again.
We would have to, yes.
Yep.
Yes, you're
But
correct.
at the time, it was,
The total cost of the project was $400,617,000.
and that was, my understanding is that if we went that route, it would be opened up to all of Texas, and so,
That's correct.
right now, we just need to find out ways, my assumption is we need to find ways to just, how do we prevent out-of-towners from utilizing it? And we use that loosely, but we want people to respect our property.
How is that lot any different from the public park, is my thing. You can't, it's still public.
Can I?
Well, until recently, it is public park because it was under the Texas Park and Wildlife, is that right?
It ran out.
It ran out, so now the park is really
City
city property.
But we have the Frisbee golf, which invites everybody in, cause I live right next to it, and some of the things that we're worried about with the boat ramp, and this is not saying those aren't realistic concerns, we see happening in the park with the Frisbee boats. So, I do think that as a city, we have to decide, what are we keeping private and what are we opening up to everyone? Because you're right, these are like two different situations, of the same conversation. I would like to see it be citizens only, but I'm also not a huge fan of the Frisbee golf being open to everybody, so, my opinion's probably kind of swayed on that, since I live right next to it.
How do we police that?
Well,
Right, there's,
same with how do you police the boat ramp?
exactly, there's not enough patrol units in, nor is that probably something that they
And let me back up, I like the idea of policing the boat ramp, I like the idea of the signs, I like the idea of making it more secure, I like all of that, but,
Well, I think we could, like Mr. Whitfield said, I think we could start out with the sign,
And if we wanna just claim it as citizens only sign put up there, let's try that.
I will interject that I did speak to the lawyers at TML as far as limiting access. And per the TML, we as a city can restrict access to that location. They used a few other park examples, and they said that one of the examples could be, and this is in the future, this isn't now, but in the future, actually put up a fee structure where, you know, citizens are free, but non-citizens, it's a chunk of money, and that money then would be used to put back into the boat ramp, and that's just an example they used. The TML lawyers did state that you can restrict access to that property.
Is this open for everyone's discussion or just you guys for now?
Just, sorry.
Okay. I just think if you knew the history of it, it would be important too.
Send us videos and emails.
Well, I can comment to that. I mean, I've been sent photos from citizens that were frankly nasty.
Yeah, we saw
As
those.
far as the trash and
Revolt.
other debris that was located on the property.
So if we did it and had a sign up that said citizens only and say there was a patrol driving by, you know, just checking other things, if it's kind of like a game warden where they go check fishing license, if they go down there and check that license and it's not a lakeside resident, what can they do?
Well,
That time they can be removed.
yeah. I
So
mean,
if it's just removal, it's not like a ticket or anything, because, I mean,
No, they would be asked to move, and I wouldn't,
You'd have to stand
If
on
you
the
allow
sign,
me
no
to-
trespassing, you know,
it would just need to say residents only, and then it would just have our symbol on it.
But someone's gonna have to enforce that constantly.
I've kind of taken it upon myself. I drive past that boat ramp. You guys probably have seen me on camera numerous times, and I've been driving past that boat ramp every chance I get. It's also something we could advise our city workers that anytime that they're passing through, they need to keep an eye on it, so.
At the least it's a deterrent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a neighbor told me that historically, citizens were told that live around it, that lot would never be developed. And that there was never going to be a dock and all the things that we've talked about. I have no idea, and I don't know who may have said that, maybe the city administrator at the time. But do you know if there's any such agreement in place like that?
There's not an agreement that previous councils searched out for a grant, and there are diagrams for a parking lot, a gazebo, I believe, and they do fishing pier and boat dock. That was all done up, and that was part of the Texas Park and Wildlife grant that we did receive. However, it has expired, and, I mean, I can't speak for previous council, so I don't know what was told to them.
Okay.
But there are drawings for it to be built out. We have never, as far as the council I've sat on, we never seek that grant, which is why it expired.
So for those of you that use the boat ramp, does it need to be improved? I mean, is it pretty
Absolutely.
wretched?
Yeah, I can't put my kayak in it. I have to dry dock my kayak.
So what would that look like, waiting until the water recedes and then repaving?
Yeah, there's actually, as part of that grant in there.
Yeah, we would probably have to do the same thing the city of Wichita Falls did when they improved their boat ramp, which consists of taking, frankly, it's just a large rubber donut, and they sink it, they fill it up with air, and then they pump the water out from the middle, and then they lower a backhoe into that area, and they just start working it, and they just start pulling the sediment out. And I know I've talked to other residents as well, 100 feet out and you're still knee deep.
It's silted in.
Right. Yes, sir. Yep, it's.
The deepest I could find out there is 7.5 feet.
Yeah, I requested one of the citizens to take his boat over there to do, depth findings, and he laughed at me and said, I can't get anywhere near it.
My kayak can find it, that's the deepest I can get my kayak.
So is it unrealistic to think we can improve the dock with any reasonable financial
I wouldn't do
investment?
anything.
Well, I mean,
City drainage.
Yeah.
yeah, right now, there's not even a dock, it just drops, like, there's nothing.
driveway.
Yeah, there's the small ramp that if you can even call it a ramp, cause it's pretty janky.
Yeah, it's sketchy.
Yeah, very much. But, I mean, I wouldn't mind like a small dock where at least you could like sit fish off of it and not have to worry
More
about.
like a pier, but something
Yeah.
very low.
Yes, something very low, it's not, you know, drastic or dramatic where it's gonna cause a lot of people to drive by and be like, oh, I'm gonna stop there.
Well, or impede people's view. We don't wanna impede people's view.
Well,
Right.
I'll be honest with you, that's the worst fishing spot you could ever go to, 'cause it's literally like a foot and a half for 50 yards out there, there's no way.
Yeah,
I think we do a whole lot of
It would be
that.
pretty bad for fishing.
Yeah, you wouldn't, I mean.
I go over there, I used to go over there in my inner tube, and I had to walk on my knees,
Yeah.
like you said, about 100 yards, that's where I can extend my legs.
Yeah, you would definitely not use that for fishing, I mean, that is really just a ramp
pretty
to
bad.
put a boat in and that's,
Yeah.
you go somewhere else.
I've talked to a couple of the residents over there, and any, now, I'm not talking about the boat ramp, a nice boat ramp would be nice when the time comes. But any structure we build, dock or anything, we're just gonna invite more people there, plain and simple.
Well, yeah, actually, what were you gonna say, just go ahead.
I just would like for the history of the lot to be considered. When we moved to the lot was donated to the city for resident use, is what we were told. And I just think we need to honor the person that did that, even though they're not around. And that's why it's not like a public park. It was donated to the lot for the city. I love seeing we love seeing people from the city using it. We love seeing the kids on their bikes. We love that. We can tell when it's a non-resident. And it is easy to police because I look out the window every day. And Donald's been awesome. If we have any issues, we just holler at him. And we have Tim's in the neighborhood. It's just a stroll by. But I just think the history is important. I think the history of our city is important. There's some really cool houses that have been out here for a long time. Just visiting with my neighbor, she told me a lot about this place. And I think it's just important to remember that.
So as citizens that live around the lot, what improvements could be made that would not be offensive in any way?
Ms. Lynn?
I just have one quick little comment. When I moved out here in '97, the front of that entire lot was fenced with a gate, with a latch gate. Over time, someone took it upon themselves to remove that front fencing. That deters a lot of people, because I used to live in that house. And you do see out multiple windows, the shenanigans that go on down at the boat ramp. But to answer your question, for as far as the aesthetics, it just cleaned up. Short shrubbery, a nice gated something, you know, I had a good visit, with a council member last weekend, and I threw out some suggestions, maybe y'all will get a chance to discuss those sometime. But it just aesthetically could look better. But the gate is, removed, and I just would like to bring it to y'all's attention that it did used to be there.
And
All the way
city
across.
council or city did not remove that, I don't think.
Oh, I know, I watched it happen.
Okay, I just want to let that be known too, that
Right.
the city did not remove
Can I
that.
say something about that too, as far as like the people down there real fast? This isn't like a,
Everyday thing.
yeah, it's not like one of these things, I mean, like that thing that happened weekend before last or whatever, like, it doesn't happen all the time, you know? And so like, yeah, I think that's the other part too, of like, starting with something really small, doesn't cost a lot, so that now we're like actually watching the traffic and paying attention, like how often are people down there, and are they from here or not here? Because that's the other part too, there's people down there, but I mean, I don't know necessarily if they're from here or not. And there are times when you can tell, that they're not from here, so.
Is there a street light over anywhere in that area at
No.
all?
On,
Not in the immediate.
So it's completely dark at night?
I don't know.
We love it.
I'm not saying a street light, but if there's something down by the water, like the, solar lights that are in the park, they're not super bright, but it's enough that you could at least see down there if somebody.
We love it, and we would, my nice neighbor even said y'all could put a camera on her
Camera.
property.
Camera.
A camera would deter a lot too.
Yeah,
But
we-
you know what? I listen to a lot of murder podcasts, and, I'm trying to keep it safe over here, guys.
No, I've seen stuff that look like.
It's here, a body, me too.
It'll flood, I guess, eventually.
This got dark
On
real fast.
a word.
I know it's not an open forum, but, I do like the suggestion about starting small. This is just another suggestion, I'd be happy to email it to one of you, you can discuss it amongst yourselves, but, I know we pump out a lot of money, I know we ask for a lot of money sometimes, but maybe just if you approach citizens and say, this is the idea, we wanna start small with a fence and a nice gazebo for you guys to use, and we're gonna raise funds for it. And if maybe we start small that way, and keep it, I think the fence would go a long way in keeping it with the residents. I think that would go a long way with achieving what you wanna achieve, but obviously, I don't think we have $448,000 to pump into that right away.
We had talked about another low fence with a gate, and then, so John looked into that, and then he also had another option that would look a little more organic, if that's the direction we would move.
Yeah, we'll go back to the point of order and Don, let's take
Okay.
over from here.
Oh, sure. So I looked at some fencing options, and I got some bids and some quotes. I was looking at basically three options, a low pipe fence. And bear in mind too, this is just something I've noticed, and maybe the citizens have noticed it as well. We've got folks that aren't using the actual driveway into the boat ramp. They're actually hopping the curb and just running right up into the grass. So eventually we're gonna see ruts, especially with the amount of precipitation we've had. So a fence can help out with that as well. But looking at the low pipe fence, I have a bid of $5,375. I also received an additional bid. Well, it gets better. I also have an additional bid for basically the same fence for $2,425. I received a bid, and this was just something that had been brought as an option and just to try and price out wrought iron, running an ornamental wrought iron across the whole front of it, and that came in at $8,486. Right now, wrought iron is through the roof, so it's pretty pricey. I looked at natural materials, and I spoke with a local company. They are what I personally feel, if I had to make a choice, I think they might probably be the best option. They're looking at, they would sell us 10, they're basically natural stone blocks that are kind of long, they're kind of long blocks, but they're natural stone that were cut. And that would form, and those would stand about this tall, so it would be enough to keep a vehicle out. That same business is willing to donate to the city enough ornamental iron then to actually create a gate. So we would just have to spend the money on a gentleman fabricating the gate. That quote came in at $1,000. And that company then was also willing to turn around and write a $500 check to the VFD, if we chose to go that route.
I'll make a motion to go that route.
And they're very short and elongated.
Are they gonna stand up from the picture? Are they standing up, or they laying flat like we see them?
That they lay flat, and you're actually seeing two of them on top of each other. So, yep. And there's marks in them. Those are drill marks. Those won't be visible. That's actually they'll flip them
So
upside
they'll
down.
be flipped upside down?
Yeah. And this price actually includes installation as well. So they'll haul them out there and put them in place.
So for the neighbors that are across the street, that would not impede any kind of vision?
No, this is probably the least vision impeding option that we have, with the exception of the gate that would go up, or the gate, but we could even make the gate a lower gate as well.
Well, is there funds left in the park budget?
$10,589.
Or you could ask for private donations for this. I mean, I imagine there's a lot of people that would throw in to get that kind of a deal. I mean, $1,000 for 10 stones and then free metal, that's crazy.
I'd almost wanna, if we were requesting citizen donations, start a donation drive for the gazebo.
Let's go back through real quick, so I'm getting two different, where I'm getting, let's start with just signs, and then I'm getting a fence. So it's very confusing for us to say which way do we go. Do we start with signs, do we start with the fence?
I say we start,
No, and that's what I'm asking, because I'm hearing, two different sides, and I just want to be clear about it and understanding so we can make a better decision on what we need to do.
this just come from me, I would like to go with what Ronnie said and start with the signs, because I wanna talk to some more of the neighbors around there before we start going. Cause I would vote against the gazebo, any structure whatsoever. Now, they may go 50-50 on it, I don't know, but I wanna talk to more people, more residents over there before we start building or doing anything.
I think we need something, I don't know if it's a fence or stone or something, those corners, I remember the lady last month talked about they're cutting right through her yard. So
Yeah.
we need some kind of corner post or something there to mark the ends or sides or something.
Well, what if we just accepted these stones at that $1,000 and then the $500 donation, even if the gate
Mhm.
waited, would that help at all with people cutting across?
Yeah, that would stop it,
It would stop with.
the cutting across.
And just have the driveway in the middle and have the stones.
Correct.
go out.
But if you put a post with a sign on it that says, for residents only, no trespassing there, I mean, you could have 4 signs with posts up there that kinda help slow that traffic from cutting in there. And let's see, I mean, my guess is the cost on that's gonna be less than, maybe $500 maybe?
Could be 65 a sign, so the
There you go.
signs
So
that I
let's say
priced
use
out,
4.
Well, then you'd have to get the post,
roughly.
but, okay, good. So aesthetically, I don't think 4 posts across the front with the big sign on it is all that pleasing. But I
Like
don't
you
live
put it
across
like
the
one
street.
corner, like put it over,
Well,
start in a corner over to the
I
side.
would just, the reason why I said with the sign was just like cost.
No, I love the sign
And not
idea.
knowing how much and like really seeing how many people down there. But I mean, just having a sign that says that so that people know, and then if you had the stones there, then I think it kind of sends a message to people,
I think
you know.
buy a sign and then, like Brad said, do,
Say again, sir?
I said we maybe just buy the sign, and then like Brad said, let him go do some counseling, and we bring it back up next month.
Because if we get a survey from most of the residents over there that they say they don't want a structure, it's $8,400 for a nice wrought iron gate or fence rather. That's gonna look better than rocks.
Now, y'all good with the fence though?
I mean, like 4 foot maybe.
I love my neighborhood, I don't agree. I don't really wanna look at a fence.
I kind of thought,
You know, yeah, I'd have to, I wanna see it for
Right.
sure. I don't mind
It's
the
just
rocks.
kind of like, what's the point, I mean, like, what's the point of having it, which is keeping people off of that lot and driving through it, so.
I do think it needs to be considered that if there is a fence, people will park right there and just walk down there, because it happens all, you can always tell when the people are not from here, because they park right by Kathy's house and they get out of their car and walk down there. So I think people will just park there. I think we just need to do a sign first and do a little trial run and see how it goes. And then
Where
I
would the
think we-
sign go?
To the
By
right.
Kathy's house.
Yeah.
I honestly think by
No,
the drive,
By the
like if you're
beginning of the
facing
drive.
out, like to the left of the drive, like, you know what I'm saying?
No, to the right.
No,
Okay.
just of the boat ramp, the drive that goes down
To
there.
the right side of it,
The
like right when you
right
turn
or
in.
left of that, because then that's where people are supposed to pull in there.
Well, that shaggy chain link in front of my garage is existing from the prior fence back
Mhm.
from
So you can put it
once
right
upon
there.
a time.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, I'd like to see that go myself.
the quote that I got was to
Not my
remove that
fence.
chain link as well,
It's garbage.
replace that chain link that's still there, so.
No, it's on my property.
There's already a city sign up there, you just put it right there with that,
Mhm.
and it's posted at that point in time.
It's good if
Down by the water?
Put it up by the,
Would
by
you
where
just
the
use
road.
the same pole and put it under
Posted
it?
right underneath the property, the city lakeside property sign.
How long is that offer good for the stone and the donation?
There wasn't a specified
That was
time
really
period.
generous.
Yeah, these,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would just wanna make sure that if we see that it is an issue, 3-6 months down the road, I just wanna make sure that that's still available, because to me, a couple of large, and these are, y'all saw, they're large stones, that will definitely stop people from driving through, and then, maybe
The only thing I'll say as far as
another
the,
year, if we needed a gate,
the only thing I'll say on the offer is that he only has so many, and he's open every day for business, so he can be offering these same stones to anybody else, and then we just missed the boat, so I'm not saying either way, I'm just saying.
For $1,000, we can try.
I don't wanna turn it into a off-road obstacle course though.
That's my.
Or the guy with the four-wheel drive that's wanting to drive over.
That's one of my biggest concerns is that you're gonna see somebody hop that curb and get in there and just start rutting it, and as far as the city goes, so.
So we're gonna start with the sign, I guess?
I think this is another one we need to table, find out more information, table, let's start with sign.
I agree.
Cause I don't know about the gate either, putting knobs open and putting the gate, who's opening, closing the gate, are we doing that? Is Don doing that, is the people that's usually
There's
doing it, in the back?
So
Yeah.
the thought was kind of as far as the thought as far as the gate was to actually put, this was just something I heard, was to put a lock on the gate, that's a code combination lock. That code then would be sent to residents on their water bill, so it would actually say boat ramp code, and then we would change it every 3-4 months. I'm just throwing it out there that that was something that had been shared with me.
How about a sign that just says there's no fish? That could solve it all.
That might be cheaper.
Snakes on.
Alright, we'll go back to the point of order. If there's a motion, we'll entertain one.
I'd like to make a motion, we table it until we find out more information, and in the meantime, have some signs put up there,
How many signs you thinking?
2.
So Mr. Stoney makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Capers seconds it, discussion between council. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Can we clarify what the signs will say, please? Is it gonna be residents only?
Yeah, residents only, no trespassing.
You want no trespassing?
Is that for like legal issues, that's what it has to say?
Yeah, it's gotta say no trespassing.
Okay.
And I'd have to see logo on it.
Mhm. Yeah, I had it on the.
Well, and his suggestion about putting it on at least one of them on the pole that's already there is a good one.
I agree, I would also put one up by the road, because the sign that says boat ramp is down a little bit further towards the water, so.
Alright, we'll go back to 7D.
Mr. Mayor, I ask that we move to item G, for sake of time, and we have a presenter.
I'm good with that. 7G is the discussion and consideration on Cobalt Ridge Internet Tower.
Alright.
And that's for everybody. I think that's two.
Yeah.
Alright, my name's Brandon Hardy, I'm the owner of Cobalt Ridge Internet Service. I've been talking actually with Eric previously and kind of floated the idea for a while of building a tower out here to be able to get internet service to Lakeside City. So basically our goal is to bring the next generation of internet access to people of the Texoma area. I'm a resident, not in Lakeside City, but of this area, and I work here all the time. I talk to people in Lakeside City and just outside of Lakeside City all the time about internet service. We currently offer service out in Iowa Park and Holiday, and the western side of Wichita Falls outside the city limits. And we're looking to expand to Lakeside City because I have easily over 100 people on a waiting list inside Lakeside City East and West that can't get my internet service. And basically what I hear from them all the time is that AT&T is too slow to even be worth the money, and Spectrum cuts in and out all the time, and that once people get home from school, then it's just basically unusable. And so our solution is to build a tower here on city property in order to have a better vantage point for our wireless internet service in the town. So our service is vastly different than our competitors at other wireless internet companies, because if you look at other wireless internet companies, they're typically offering 5 and 10 megabits per second, which if you just go to Netflix's website and just go to their Q&A section and see how much it requires 8 megabits per second for a single stream of Netflix, and the other wireless providers are offering 5 or 10. And so our pitch is basically, if we can build a tower here on this property, we can have a vantage point to see most of the residents in Lakeside City, and we'll be offering speeds starting at 100 megabits per second. That's gonna be our bottom package, and we can go up from there. Because we're using technology that's very different than any of our other providers, any of our other competitors. According to a joint study, I have it here on your handouts, according to a joint study by OSU and the University of Wisconsin, access to reliable broadband increases property value and economic growth. So it's in the best interest of everybody in the city of Lakeside City to have another option for internet. So that will be 3 options at that point if you discount the other wireless internet providers. So you'll have AT&T, Spectrum, and me. More options is always better for the residents. So a lot of the questions like that I discussed with Eric, I have down here in bullet points. These are not finalized or anything. These are just kind of things that I put down for your consideration. We can spitball ideas back and forth if this is something I want to go with. Basically, perpetual lease for a 25-foot square compound. So this compound would just be over there, square, 25 by 25 by 25 by 25. And perpetual lease because in my particular scenario, what if I spend, $70,000 to build a tower and then a city council 15 years from now doesn't want to renew it, then I'm screwed. And so I think it would be better for everybody if we just did a perpetual lease. 160 foot self-supporting. I would like to do a 200 foot, but steel prices and everything, it's not worth it. 160 feet self-supporting, so no guy wires we have to worry about. I would be installing my own security cameras, 360-degree coverage around the tower site itself. So that would also benefit y'all. If something happens to happen at the city property and my cameras catch it, then you'll be able to see it. But just so you know that I would be installing security cameras on there. And then Eric had mentioned that y'all wanted to know pricing. Basically, what am I willing to offer in exchange for having a piece of property over there that I use? So there are basically 2 different avenues, and I'm open to negotiation, but 2 different avenues. Free internet for all city sites at 100 megabits per second for every single city site, plus a $150 check in addition to the internet, or just a $450 rent. Because from my perspective, we're offering a service to the city, to the residents of Lakeside City, and I'm sucking up the entire cost of everything. So we would also be able to have a free attachment for the fire department antenna. Any equipment that y'all need for the fire department can go up there on the tower. It'll be able to handle it. And then of course, 10% of the monthly revenue if we end up leasing space on that tower to, let's say, a cell phone provider, which is also good for the city, then we would pay y'all 10% of whatever we are getting from a lease on that tower site. So any of the other bullet points, I figured y'all can read those. I don't need to waste time reading all of those, but if y'all have any questions, I'm open for it. This is kind of where we're spitballing ideas of what, if y'all are open for the idea in the first place, and what you would like to see in a contract if we move forward.
Okay, so you said the 100 was your base?
That's gonna be our bottom package for our new service.
What does that run?
It's gonna be $55. So with our service, there's no contract, there's no, how other companies they'll do, it's X price for the first year, and then it's $65 or $75 after that. That's not how our company operates. We don't do a single contract as far as you have to be a customer for X amount of time. We don't do any of that, and we have no plans to do that. And then we also don't nickel and dime you, so that's actually the cost. There's no sales tax or anything, and then there's no introductory pricing or anything. It's literally $55.
Okay, what are the other speeds?
So the other speeds we haven't 100% decided on it, but what I'm leaning towards is 100, 150, and 200 for speeds. And those price points will be around 55, 75, and 100 to 110, somewhere around there.
And the tower, what is the ADI on that tower like? I know you said it'll serve our community, but how far out is it gonna go for other communities and neighborhoods? Cause I'm assuming you'll offer it all around us.
So we're gonna basically be able to get down Parker Road all the way until kind of the houses stop on Parker Road. We'll be able to get almost to the Walmart back down 79, and then we will be able to get all the houses down 79 South, kind of by T-Bone Road, Carter Road area. Like right where those houses stop, that's gonna be our boundary there. And then over towards 2650, we're gonna be able to get halfway to 2650 because we're gonna have another tower over there that's gonna meet in the middle. So basically, 2650, 1954, this whole area, I would say a 3 mile radius is what we're looking at. sent him I don't know if he sent that out or not, I sent John, the diagrams and everything, but basically, we're gonna be hiring a tower company to build the thing. It has to go roughly 15 feet deep for the actual, concrete structure. They do rebar and all that kind of stuff, 15 feet deep, and, so it's a 15-foot square, foundation. But yeah, if you were to go from here over to the Walmart, those cell towers that are off to the right, it would look something like those cell towers. Not exactly the same brand, but it will look like those.
The issue I have personally is just, we just passed an ordinance for aesthetics. And here we are asking to put up a 160-foot tower. When we just passed an ordinance for aesthetics for propane and for solar panels. It's just counterproductive there for me.
I think this provides an opportunity to have a service to the citizens though.
Maybe we could go look at those towers that he was talking about and just see what they look like.
Our water tower is 90 feet, so you're looking at almost 2 water towers on top of each other.
It's 90 feet.
It's 90 feet. So you're looking 2 towers minus 20 feet.
The tower that's over by the pet resort over there, that one's about 170, 180 feet, and it would look basically like that tower without the cellular equipment up top, because we don't use that same equipment, so it wouldn't have the clump of equipment. over the top.
Where is it?
It's just over by the pet resort, just past
The
1904.
pet chateau
Yeah,
thing.
by Lake Road Welding.
Okay, so it would look like that.
Basically the same model tower as that, just less equipment hanging on it.
But there's also a clause in there where we'll get 10% of whatever tower or whatever goes on there, right?
Yeah.
So it's also taking money, because we also do rent on top of our water tower, so that's taking funds away from us as well.
And we have rentals there now.
We do have rentals, correct.
I will point out that the people that are renting on your water tower, I'm not going to allow to rent on mine because they're my direct competitors. My goal is to build a tower that's beefy enough to attract a cellular company, because first of all, they pay a lot, like over almost $2,000 a month for cellular contracts, but it will also bring their cell service to the city. So that's basically my long-term goal. It's not gonna be Pinnacle or Rise that's gonna be renting from it, it's gonna be a cell company.
Is this, I'm new to council, so is this something that we would canvass the community about their interests? Or do we just make the decision?
We could do either or.
I mean, we definitely, I think, would have to do our due diligence with our neighbors, directly next to us. And we've talked about this, because this has come up, it's just been the first time he's been able to come and present it. Would any of your services be able to be hardwired in, or is it all?
So from this location, we would be able to expand to fiber optics in the future. It's just fiber is so prohibitively expensive. I actually already got an engineering company to do the design for Lakeside City, and just for Lakeside City West, it would cost me over $1 million just to run fiber to every single house. Which at that point, I'd be looking at a 10 to 15 year ROI, which is just not worth it. Which is why a fiber company hasn't come in yet. Because the poles are sagging too much, you can't hang anymore, because Encore would make me fix all of their own poles. And so then I would have to do underground for everything, which at that point, we're talking $20 a foot for the entire city. So yes, it could be. We will have enough capacity at this tower to branch out fiber from it, but not in the immediate future.
What do y'all have on the west side primarily?
I have Spectrum, but I have to have it for work, and it has to be hardwired in, I can't use.
We have
satellite.
Spectrum and Pinnacle, because the VPN doesn't work on one of them. So we have to have two services.
I think everybody has Spectrum, because I was told AT&T did not come to where my house was.
They may just have phone line service, or just phone service, because they do have wires throughout the whole city. I just don't know what kind of service.
When I was looking at internet 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was told basically Spectrum was my only option was Pinnacle. And we just don't have a lot of options, and I think we need to waive that, or think about that, giving citizens more options.
And I'll
give
say,
Spectrum off the moment.
I'll say this, I'm not a citizen of Lakeside City, but where I live, which is literally 5 minutes down the road. My only internet option is Spectrum, and I always have issues with them. And if they were to give me another option, I promise you, I would be so thankful, and I would probably switch that night, because I would want that other option. And so, I think that it could be something, maybe just talking to the citizens about and seeing if that's even something they want. If it's not even something they want, then why do it, right? But
I
if
can
there's
see
so
it.
many issues with internet problems and people having internet problems, then
We get complaints every day because, people say they
Yeah, when we
can't
try
get
to call.
through,
Yeah.
and it's literally because, sorry. Literally like, because it goes down about 4:30 every single day, and it's
Corey.
out until like 6.
I have Cobalt Ridge. My son could be online playing games. My wife and I could watch Netflix and play on our phones, and it just churns right along.
See, that's what I have with Spectrum, so when people are like, oh, I have so many problems,
Yeah.
I have my work computer that has multiple screens. We can have our hockey kids on Hulu, my kids on PlayStation, my husband's on Hulu, and we don't have issues.
Which package you have? You have a
Like
commercial
100.
package?
No, we're up here, and literally John will be like, oh, is it 4:30? Cause my internet just
Yeah.
went out, and it's like, oh, yep, it is.
I think this is something we
What do we
definitely
have
need to talk about.
Spectrum.
It is worth looking at, but I think we definitely need to look at these prices based off what it's gonna make available in this area, and a 3-mile radius, that's a lot of people.
Now, I will say there's a technology that we're going to be trialing in Wichita Falls first. It's gonna happen in mid-July, that if it works well, I'm gonna duplicate it here in Lakeside City. That is wireless but fiber speeds, so we'll be able to offer gigabit symmetrical speeds, which means 1,000 upload and 1,000 download, which Spectrum is unable to do. If you go to the Spectrum gigabit package, it's 940 by 20.
But that's only if we have the tower.
Yes, there's no way I could make it work if I don't have a tower somewhere close to here. I've had two nearby residents that are outside of the city say that I could put the tower in their location, but this is closer to the city, which means I have a better vantage point over a lot of trees. So basically, we would get better market penetration if we put the tower here rather than somewhere else.
So
nearby.
even though you can go 3 miles out, which is a lot of people that aren't Lakeside City,
Mhm.
is there a chance that there's another location besides the one you just mentioned that would still serve our community?
The problem I've come to with Lakeside City in particular is that the trees are so tall, that the way without getting into an engineering discussion, the way wireless service works is the higher the frequency you go, the better speeds you get, but also the less obstacles it can go through. So that's why cellular companies, they have slower speeds. If you do a speed test on your phone, you're gonna get like 10 or 15 meg, but it can go through a wall. My speeds, you can get 100, but it can't go through anything. It can't go through a tree, so it has to be complete line of sight. That means that I have to get my tower as close to the actual customers as possible if they have big trees. Now, the people down there, they don't have big trees, and so I can shoot 2-3 miles to them and it's fine. But if I put a tower even just across the road over by that other tower, I actually looked at that one over by Lake Road Welding. I even looked at renting space on that one. I wouldn't be able to get a vantage point to about 40% of Lakeside City if I went with that.
And would renting space on our water tower not be high enough?
No, first of all, it's not high enough. Second of all, there's already renters up there, so there'd be interference issues. And then, third of all, you don't wanna put my type of technology on a water tower because it's a huge metal reflective surface, so you get what's called multipath, where something will hit it and bounce off like that. And so basically, it turns out that it would just suck if we did that.
What is at the resident's house to receive your package?
So it depends on which technology we do. If it's gonna be our regular 5 gigahertz, that's gonna be the one I'm advertising here, it's gonna be an antenna about this big. If you walk outside that door and you look straight up, there's one on the side of this building. We actually hooked up service here when the building was under construction, and then my tower got vandalized and collapsed, and so I can't service this place anymore. But that's the exact antenna I'd be using on people's houses.
And then it comes into the house to one location? Or
Yes.
does it go to multiple locations?
The only difference between my service and something like Spectrum is the way it gets to your house. Once it gets to your house, it's a cable that comes inside, plugs into a router, and you can plug your laptop directly into it if you need to. So at that point, it is a hardline connection.
It's also Wi-Fi in your house?
Yes, yeah, we provide the Wi-Fi in the house as well.
I will say, we talked to Mr. Moser next door, and he's fully supportive of the tower going up next to his house.
Now, one of the things I had mentioned to Eric, and this is kind of on y'all to do, so we will provide, free service to all of y'all's city sites. But if we were to provide just from that tower to this building, either y'all could, y'all would be responsible for doing underground if you wanted like an actual fiber line coming from the tower into the building, or we can set up wireless that can do full speeds. It's whatever's up to you. Just so you know that me boring into the building is not included in the offering, but we would still be able to get you service either way.
Do we have stuff at the lagoons that are Wi-Fi?
Yes, yes, sir.
It'll reach the lagoons?
Yes, it's all on Parker Road, so yes, sir.
Yeah, I have customers all the way at the end of Parker Road, right where it turns into, forget what road it is down there. I even have customers on that dirt road.
What
past
tower
Parker.
are they hitting?
Well, they were hitting the tower in Wichita Falls, it's like 7 miles away until it got cut down, so. I guess you could say they're not customers anymore, but not by their own choice.
No, and maybe I missed it, but why did you decide not to rent from the Lake Road Welding Tower?
First of all, it's too expensive, it's owned by a national company that only sells to cell carriers, so they expected me to pay that rate of $2,000 a month, which is not gonna happen. But also, it doesn't have a good enough vantage point over the trees in Lakeside City. So I looked at it, I'd get about 40 to 50% market penetration with that tower, but if I did this one, I could get 70 to 80% market penetration.
So would that be the same thing out at our lagoons? The vantage point? But we lease that, right?
Yeah, but there's no trees out there, I think that's where you're getting at, correct?
Yeah, it's a straight shot. There's not-
Right, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying, so like, if it wasn't by the building, if it was out at the lagoons, then it probably still wouldn't get
No.
enough.
Oh, putting the tower out at the lagoons, it would be too far away at that
We-
point.
We lease that land, we don't own it.
Right, that's what I was wondering.
John, would you please go over what it is for VFDs?
Well, there's a couple of different ways that it can benefit the fire departments. It would benefit Lakeside Fire Department 2 ways as well. We would be able to put our station radio antenna on his tower for just the station radio. It would also then benefit, we're looking at it potentially benefiting, all the VFDs that have to operate or are already operating in the northern part of the county by, Shane Wright, the emergency management coordinator for Archer County, would then look at, relocating the repeater from Holiday, to, his tower, which would then increase our radio capabilities for Lakeside City, Bowman, any of the departments that have to operate up here. Cause at this time, the repeater is on a 90-foot tower down in Holiday in a bowl, and it's just not doing what they thought it would do.
Commissioner's gonna pay for that?
Hello.
No, I'm being serious.
I'm sorry?
I'm being serious, like, are y'all commissioner's gonna pay for that relocation of that?
This is the first I've heard of it. Yeah, Shane hasn't brought it up to the commissioners yet because, we don't know what's happening with this tower, so it's all
Is the
hypothetical.
Bowman location, out of the question? Is it too far away?
1954.
Yeah, like
fire
if you,
department?
yeah, if you
Fire
put it at their fire department, would
That'd
it,
be too far away, it'd be great for all the people in 1954, but
But
it
it
would
wouldn't
almost
reach
nothing for
Lakeside?
City.
It's
Because
really
currently-
the trees out
He
here.
needs to be on top of that balloon, and it needs, basically.
Yeah, currently we don't actually advertise that we offer service in Lakeside because I have a few customers here and it's too unpredictable. So I'd like something to actually be able to provide service here. If I were to put it at Bowman, it would be too far away for me to advertise that I can offer reliable service.
okay, I thought that was closer than that, I didn't think it would be a problem, but clearly you already looked at it.
I think we definitely need to discuss this and look at it. I think it, needs to be tabled for further discussion and the options.
How do we get citizens input?
I think this, like Kim said, we need to put this paper out
Okay.
to the citizens, say, here you go. But we're gonna look at it.
I bet you're gonna look at a tower.
I'm ready to change.
And hopefully people that aren't here will watch the video, and then that way they'll know, based off the agenda and everything, they can go and look at this and see what was talked about and send us, you know, an email or give us a call or whatever, and that way we can get there.
Well, Mr. Sturgis, isn't this what you were talking about?
I was, well, there's some questions on his system, what I've read up on it. I'm just barely excited exactly what his kind of operation was. But is it a line of sight, right?
It's line of sight.
Do you have a device that you can see by the residents if you're gonna be able to do it? Because I
Yes.
remember Pinnacle said they could do it for me, and then all of a sudden, it didn't work, and they said, well, there's this big tree here. And he said, you gotta cut that tree down. I said, I cut my tree down.
No, there are two solutions we use for figuring out if we can get to somebody. One of them is a software solution, it's actually developed by Facebook, that has LiDAR data. They actually have planes that just fly over everything and take LiDAR data, and so it's only about 6 to 8 months old. And we can use that to map from our tower to the resident, and I can even tell the square foot that it needs to be on the customer's rooftop. And then before I actually schedule an install appointment, I will go out there or send one of my technicians out there to go climb on the roof and get a visual before we actually sit and do it.
Does the homeowner, does he have to have a modem or router
We provide all of it for free.
for free?
There's no rental on the router or anything like that, it's included in the service.
That's, cause.
Where exactly is the tower gonna be located in this property?
So, the best thought is basically that tree line between the neighbor's house and here. There's like that dirt area that's kinda looks like a drainage area, that would be the best spot for them. So just outside of the rock parking area over there, but before the trees, just between those two areas.
Well, see, Spectrum, they charge you a fee for the modem, a $50 fee unless you buy your own.
That's why I started this company, it's because of that, 'cause
You gotta try to pan that.
So, yeah. I'm tired of internet providers trying to nickel and dime and squeeze people for all the money they're worth. I literally just wanna offer an honest service. You give me money, I give you internet, we're good. And that's my business model.
Well, it's so important, as I said before, that we have to have the best internet service we can provide available. And by having that, that will increase our citizens'
Is it an option?
plus new citizens say, how good is your internet? They'll ask.
Well, cause think of it this way, Vexus Fiber just announced that Wichita Falls is getting fiber to the home to 19,000 houses. What is Lakeside City getting? They're not coming out here. And so y'all have to be able to say, hey, we also have good internet, like, you could move there or you could move here. And so this is a viable option to offer good internet when Wichita Falls is getting fiber.
Also, may I interject? By having a fiber system, as technology, as he says, increases, we will be able to have like big businesses or companies will come in and say, well, hey, they're already set up for fiber, we need a fiber system for 20 or 30 of our computers. We couldn't do that with Spectrum. Not the, well, we could, but the wiring, you have to change with the technology. And the fiber is the latest and the greatest right now. Now, there might be something down the road that might be better, I don't know, but right now, the fiber, the T1 lines are the best that I know of.
Table it, follow the audience.
We'll put it out to the citizens.
Sounds good.
All right, then, let's-
Here.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we gonna put it out in like a brochure, in a mail, or how we gonna do this, or?
However you'd like, just tell me how you want it.
And then how do we get their input? Do we put our email
do we
addresses
do?
on there?
All of our email
You're on the
addresses
water
are
bill.
online on the city
Website,
website.
tell them to go to the website and look at it, and they can respond
In
to
the past, we've
emails
done
to you guys.
surveys on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I just put it on the marquee board.
Sure. I
Marquee
can create a
board.
survey monkey.
And then is there room on the water bill to put a blur?
Oh yeah, to put a survey monkey link.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I was just reviewing our survey monkey just the other day.
Well, we did that last year on a
Just for
couple
fun.
things, the survey went in,
I don't know.
they had a pretty good turnout response from it, so.
Cause if it's gonna be ugly, we're gonna have to have everybody think it's a great idea.
the amount of people that I've had that they say, just stick it right on the front of my house, cause I would rather have internet. And you'd be amazed at what people would be able to put up with just to get internet.
Now we're gonna have to create an ordinance for that.
Alright, is there a motion?
Make a motion, we table the Cobalt Ridge until we get citizens' comments.
Bring it back next month, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Carey makes the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Cam seconds it, discussion between council, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
It would be my point of contact.
John will be.
Thank you so much, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alright, that brings us back to 7D, sorry, 8D.
Yeah.
Is it 7 or 8? It's 8.
Well, the problem is that we put the oaths in there, so normally it would be 7, but. 7D, discussion and consideration on payment to Lone Star Waste Services for septic inspections to date, which was, May 11th, in the amount of $7,418.80.
How many have we got done so far?
54, so we're at 54 at this time.
We just need a motion to pay the bill.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion, we pay Lone Star Waste Management $7,418 for their inspections they've done to this point. And 80 cents, I'm sorry.
Mr. Zoning makes the motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Williams seconds it, discussion between council.
I have one question. Is there any rhyme and reason the house that he's picking?
Well, it's, he's trying to take care of the east side first, but if we have a house that has an issue, that needs to be looked at, we're moving them kind of ahead of the line to kill two birds with one stone. Not only take care of the issue, but then get the inspection done as well. So, we also have a few homes that are being sold. Those sales require a septic inspection, so we're again killing two birds with one stone by getting them to the front of the list as well, so that they can get inspected, and that's why we have a little bit of a shotgunning, but they are trying to stick to the east side. Side note, this rain is not helping us as far as our
That was
inspection.
what I was gonna ask you. What was, did we see, what numbers did we see this past weekend?
As far as the water going to the
Yeah.
lagoons,
Let's do
Let's
that
go,
at the
yeah,
end.
we'll come back to that.
that's fine,
At the end.
sure, absolutely.
Do you kind of have an idea, like, about maybe percentage-wise, what's left on east? Or what's been completed so far? I mean, are we half of them yet?
Not on east, I would say a fourth of them at this time. So, because we have had quite a few on the west side that had issues that had to get inspected.
That's what I'm wondering with the price difference on some things.
Yeah, the price difference is because some of them are just a slam dunk inspection, there isn't any issues. The ones that are a little bit higher they're installing the buzzers. Yeah, that's what.
I will say that buzzard is super loud, and while I know it is super annoying, it's definitely not something you can ignore.
If you'd like, we can discuss the buzzer further at the end. I can go into what I've heard and what I can share, so, if you'd like.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes. That is 8F.
Yeah. Discussion and consideration on hours of the city park bathrooms.
Well, this is something you want to put on there, so.
Yeah. You wanna talk about it when you can?
Sure, I think that with more activity and especially with school getting out, I don't know that, we haven't seen any issues so far with limiting the hours of the bathrooms being open. Has there been any major issues, any vandalism?
No,
Anything?
I have not heard of any
Okay.
issues at this time.
I think at this point that we could probably go ahead and extend those hours to, I would think working hours, because then you've got an employee that opens it up in the morning, there's always somebody there anyways, and then closing it in the afternoon, because then anybody that is renting those fields has a key to it and it can be opened. And then are the seasonal employees, are they working on Saturday and Sunday, or is it just employee hours, or are they?
Don's been coming in at 7:30 and he'll leave, and, yeah, roughly about 4:30.
Okay.
I would say close it at 4, that way then it gives Don a little bit of time to make sure there isn't a mess in there, so he can clean it up prior to leaving. That's just my input.
Sounds good.
I don't think any motion is needed for that, right? Because it's a change really, just hours. Do you need a motion for this? So the new bathroom hours would be, you just wanna make it 8 to 4:30?
8 to 4?
8 to 4.
Yeah.
Alright, that brings us to 8H.
Discussion and consideration on the sale of the lot at 816 Royal. So we had a high bid, that we accepted at the previous meeting of $37,301.52. I went ahead and had the lawyer firm that takes care of a lot of our tax issues with, getting taxes from properties. I wanted them to draw up the documents, regarding those sales, and during the research that they did, they discovered that that property is what she called a reverter property. And basically, and I'll read, what the deed states, is the purpose of the conveyance from the grantor Genevieve Hopkins to the grantee Archer Community Foundation, Lakeside City Improvement Fund, and grantor Genevieve Hopkins directs that the herein conveyed lands are donated for and to be used solely for purposes of a public park. And it's said ban, if it's not used for that purpose, those lands will revert in full, back to, the grantor, heirs or assignees, together with all improvements and attachments thereto. I went ahead and shared that information with the gentleman that had the high bid, and he is no longer interested in purchasing that property.
Any questions from council? We'll move on to 8I, discussion and consideration of the appointment of the Nortex proxy.
So Nortex has, meetings, they're usually monthly. They'll probably start cranking them up, going back to that schedule with COVID. I would usually attend those meetings, but if there's an individual, we need to have somebody else that's a kind of a fallback, if I'm unable to attend that meeting. In the past, it's been, Mr. Paper. So we need to reappoint an individual to be proxy.
And continue to do it, it's no big deal. I stopped doing when the COVID stuff stopped, so I've got no reason that I can't keep going.
Anybody else wanna volunteer themselves?
What is it?
Take all the stuff. And it's all the judges and everything together, like the commissioners and all of
You
it.
can keep them.
Well, you bring it up, or we can use that.
Oh, wait, what kind of parking?
There's food involved.
Alright, we need a motion for that one.
I make the motion, we continue the way it is.
Okay. John and then focus just a second.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Somebody seconds it. Discussion between council. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes. Brings us to number 9, other items from council. Ms. Williams. Park employee items, or the
The weekend hours.
seasonal?
Yes, the seasonal, what are the seasonal, I know they work on their kind of own schedule, but
Mhm.
have they,
No, we changed that.
oh, okay.
Yep.
What is
Yep.
that?
I sat down with the seasonals and got with them and talked to both the young men and established hours. It was too shotgunning as far as, we wanna keep them together, so we wanna keep their hours together. So, for the next couple of weeks left of school, I've got set hours for them. Obviously the rain's been an issue, so with it being an issue, they've been checking in with me and saying, do you have work for us? And then I'm able to find some stuff for them to do or just not, so.
Okay.
When we hit summer, I'm gonna talk to both young men. Weekends are a definite possibility, so, But they're, at the end of the day, they're still teenagers and we don't wanna, or I don't wanna impede on their lives too much and still be able to have them go out and about and be kids, so, but yes, weekends is definitely an option.
So, I think maybe what I would suggest, because I know there's just the on-call if there's an emergency, but if they're going to be doing stuff that maybe we consider whatever hours they're gonna work on Saturday or Sunday, being able to have the bathrooms open at that point, so then that way there's people there at the park, they can use them, but then once they leave, they're locked back up again, and then that way, I don't know if there's gonna be set hours for them, or if that's gonna be a little bit more lax, since it's still, I mean, it's still their weekend, but that would be my suggestion, because I know that the bathrooms have been an issue, and I know that they were on Saturday, and my husband called me, he was like, hey, we've had several people come up here, can you go down the park and unlock the bathrooms, and at least we can let them know that if they're in the middle of garage selling, you know, that they can at least go to the park, so I went down there and unlocked them at least for that.
The other side of the coin is that the on-call employee is getting paid for 2 hours for the weekend, and so I don't see why they couldn't be also part of that scenario as well, to come in and.
It's a minimum of 2 hours when they get called out.
Yeah,
Correct.
So
that's-
only if they get called out,
Right.
so if they come up here to unlock bathrooms, it takes them 10 minutes, we're paying them 2 hours a day.
Yeah,
When they come
no.
up here to close it, we're paying 2 hours to come close it.
Yeah, I
That's the
think
Yeah.
problem.
on the seasonal part-time, maybe we just pay them an hour.
I would just say,
Well,
if they're there at the
close.
park, unlock it, if they're not,
That's
leave it locked.
exactly my thought right
Good with
there.
that, whatever you say.
Yeah, just because they're available, they're there anyways, unlock them, because they may need them as well.
Okay.
By the way, since we live next to the park, I saw both of them working Saturday morning, and they were hustling. I mean, there was no goofing off. They mowed for
They,
3 or 4 hours
they
straight.
put in 6 hours on Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah, cause they wanted to get the park done before the rain hit, so.
yeah, they were hustling.
Thanks, David. Ms. Raymond, anything else?
Not that I can think of right now, other than my stomach's hungry.
My other question, just real quick, was what did we see the numbers on the lagoon during the rain over the last few days?
For the last few days, I haven't seen the numbers, but I can tell you that the number during the 5-inch event, was, I wanna say it was 267,000, which is still below,
Well below.
well below where we're at, so what we're doing is working.
Yeah.
It's reducing
We
the
were
amount.
seeing 325 or more, 350, weren't we?
Right, all the way, I've heard all the way up to 400,000,
That's
so
what I'm saying.
it's working,
Okay,
yes.
that's all I have, thank you.
Okay.
East side over there on, corner of Donna and Edwards Way, the new house going up right there, the contractor had Sky track forklift out there, and of course, it made a mess in the medians all around the house, and started crossing the road over there and just rutting it all up, and John spoke to him about it and all that, I just, was he gonna fix it when time's all said and done, or?
Yeah,
Is
so
it the steel frame?
he,
Yeah, it's a mud hole over there.
long story short, yes, he will be fixing it.
Okay.
Yep, yep, and on a side note, there was concerns about the construction of that house. The fact that every time the wind blows, pieces of that house are ending up almost into Edwards Way. So Dean, our city engineer, will be looking at that home, tomorrow morning, to make sure that it's structurally sound.
Yeah, that's the first metal house I've seen go up out here like that, metal studs anyway.
It's like a kid's one it is.
I had wondered about, trash cans, whether, like at the lake lot, if they're a trash can you're chained to the pole the way they do it, or a couple in the park. I know that trash from the Frisbee golf has been a problem in the past, items left in the park, and, I mean, have we ever thought about trash cans along the walk, or,
We can do it.
well,
Yes.
I don't know that it's worth doing, I'm just wondering.
The only thing with and I could be totally wrong here, but putting a trash can at the boat ramp might encourage trashy behavior. But it might not. I mean, it's another one of those deals where it's worth a try.
Well, if it's our residents, you would hope they weren't gonna leave things behind, but things are being left behind in the park. In fact, it's a lot of trash after the weekend especially. And so I didn't know if maybe a few few trash cans along the path,
Yeah,
would
I
be
can-
helpful.
I can definitely,
Pass them out.
sure, I can just buy them right out of the park budget and be be within the limit, sure.
I've got 4 or 6 of those gravel style, which I can have if you come pick them up.
There you go. That's the ones that are out there now, correct?
Huh?
The ones that kind of mirror like what it's out
They're
there now.
just, they're square, they're not round.
You just buy the inserts.
How do you find a bag for a square trash can?
You just
Is
cut
this a
corners.
joke? Are you trying to unload something on the city?
Yes, because I
On my way.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Brad?
I want to congratulate Kim and Will and Miss Davis, but other than that, I have nothing.
I just had one more thing. So that, the lot at the end of Royal that's withdrawn at this time, I've looked at, I've gotten resident, not really complaints, but feedback. That area is, very overgrown, very, jungle-like looking. I know that there have been plans in the past for a parking lot and sort of that kind of thing, high dollar type projects.
And those were denied.
Right, right, yeah. And so I was looking, I got a couple of quotes and I feel pretty good. I got a quote for $1,500 and that's for a company to come in and actually pull all that dirt that's in there out of there, all that garbage dirt, level everything off, fill in the low spots and make everything look really, really nice and provide parking for about 4 cars. It would also be the start of possibly a nature trail or the possible, nice place to put a park bench, just start clearing that property up. There's a little bit of a criminal element, that's been using that is a little bit of a highway. So, moving around in there, and I've had some residents complain about that as well. Something about, there's a possibility of a fort that was built back in there with a drug paraphernalia laying about. So I'd like to get in there and get that all cleaned up and make it a nice, safe place and utilize more of the park than we have been, so.
I kind of discuss that, maybe that probably needs to be an action item.
Yeah.
For next month, I'd like to entertain that.
Mhm.
And maybe just kind of what does that look like? I mean, the 4 cars, it's gonna be that isn't enticing as much as just cleaning it up, to be honest
Sure.
with you.
This is part of the package.
Yeah,
Yep.
so, but let's get those bids, in writing as far as what
Mhm.
it's gonna consist of, and I
Yep.
think you already have that, but
Yep.
let's probably next agenda items, we can make a motion
Sure.
for that.
Absolutely.
And not that you have to do it because of the price, but just because we wanna make sure council's on board as far as exactly what's gonna take place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just curious how deep into the mess it would go.
If you're standing in Royal, if you look at the grassy part, that's as deep into the mess as it would go. So we clean out all the grassy stuff, and then we would be able to bring in like a citizen group to start working on actual clearing the brush. Have a Lakeside City Day where we come in and start cleaning up the trees and whatnot, cleaning them up.
I'd be interested in quoting that too, just to see what that looks like separately,
Sure, absolutely.
cause that brush has gotta go somewhere, so I'd like to chop that up.
Are we pulling that dirt out or just smoothing it out? We're not
They're
pulling it out.
there's a rumor that there's a whole bunch of concrete in there as well.
I was wondering how low that
I'm sure
is. If you
there's-
pour it
There's
out,
low
then
spots.
I mean,
There's some standing water in there. The quote is to come in and level it completely off, make everything level, fill in all the holes using the existing dirt that's in there,
Gotcha.
and then haul off anything else that's in excess.
Gotcha.
Hey Corey, just throw one more thing that you guys might want to think about. Along the lines, I'm still engaged with Nortex on economic development for Archer County. And last week Joe Gamble retired and Lynn Barnett from the NPO. We're included, we're a little bubble on the bottom of that NPO thing, as is Pleasant Valley on the west side. We need to send someone to that.
Problem is they will only let me go to that, and it's like on
No,
Monday
you can do
morning.
proxy, I think.
I sure cannot, I tried, I got a letter
When
from
did
him.
we start that?
It was probably 3.5 years ago, I tried to get, actually Miss Stevens to go, and he would not let her go.
Let me talk to Lynn then.
Because I can't, it's a Monday morning at 8:30, and I'm
No, I
like,
know,
I got
I know
to
that.
full time
Day
job,
job.
so,
Yeah,
yeah, I tried to pass that off, I even tried to pass it off there, she wouldn't let it happen.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. You did that one.
So,
I was
yeah,
lucky- I was lucky.
if you can bypass that and get it, let's go
Yes,
for it.
I'll
Yeah.
talk to him and find out, 'cause
Yeah.
I'll owe him some stuff.
Anything else, John?
No, sir.
Allison?
Nope.
Vice President?
No.
The one thing I have, and John, I'm gonna ask that you refrain from answering or commenting on any of this, is can you let us know about the interview process and what are we looking at? I know we have set up for tomorrow to do some interviews, how did those come up?
We do not have anything set up for tomorrow in concrete. I have had a few responses, when I say few, but what I am actually looking at is more so next week,
So
Monday of next week.
Monday of next week at 5:30.
And we'll have 30 minutes apiece, and I'm looking at the most 6
What do you mean, nothing in concrete? They haven't
responses.
told you, they hadn't responded for tomorrow's?
So we do not need to be on a call tomorrow.
No.
So the next meeting we will have to interview will be Monday at 5:30 here at City Hall.
Yes.
And we will be in the city offices, because sewer task force always has a meeting at that same time.
And those are going in email as well as phone and call. Yeah.
So we come up here and there, okay.
And that's the 24th,
Yes.
5:30?
Correct.
Okay.
And bring a list of questions you'd like to ask. We have a 30-minute spot reserved for each one, just to do initial contact with them to make sure they understand what the position entitles, which I did send out a letter to each one of them. But correct, right?
Yes.
We have, yeah, so, let them know exactly what the expectations were as well. So, that's just for us to clarify everything, and then we can move on to the second round of interviews. Okay, that's one thing I have to do. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Discussion from council, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
I hope we get it.